This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. 3, 2, 1. And welcome everybody to this episode of Coming Home with John Allen. I am your humble host, John Allen. Before we get started, I want to let you know that you can look at the description of this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcast platform, and you will see several links that you can click into if you'd like to support the work I'm doing. As we say in good English, help a brother out. Jeff Wasserman, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Today.
This is, you've been a long-awaited guest.
So you say.
So I say. No, we had a few cancellations. I think you canceled once, and I canceled 100 times, something like that. But here we are.
Yeah.
We're doing it when we're supposed to. Yeah.
I like to say is when it will, then it will.
Yeah, no stress. But we were talking before we went live here, talking a little bit about each other's backgrounds and whatnot and what brought us to Norway. I want to say that I feel like I've known you for quite some time. Now, it was Martin Hagfors who suggested that I ask you to come on. And I found out about Martin's music, I want to say within a month after me coming to Norway in 2002. And through his music, I came across you and your writing and some of the projects that you had going on. So I always thought it was interesting that these two musicians / songwriters with an American background were making it here in Norway. So I feel like I've known you for quite some time, and it's, I don't want to freak you out. I don't want to sound like a fanboy, but it is really cool after all these years of knowing who you are and kind of following your progress and your music and your writing and everything from the sidelines to finally meet you after 20 years of me being here in Norway. So welcome to my show.
Well, it's an honor to be here.
Stop lying.
Oh, it is.
No, this is fun. This is the kind of stuff I like to do. I like to get to know the people who interest me, get to know the people who inspire me. And as a songwriter myself, you inspire me because you've kind of spread yourself out there. You've worked with a lot of musicians. Claudia Scott, you have a side project with her.
Claudia, I've played with for years.
Years, at least a decade, right?
Oh, no. 30 years.
Yeah.
Since the time I got here, we've always had an association. We had a trio for a while. I mentioned those tours that we had up in northern Norway. That was with Claudia and Jørgen Bøgebæk.
Yeah.
And we've written a lot together, and we hang a lot together. She's like my sister.
So it's beyond the musical thing. You guys are friends.
Yeah, we're close friends. Yeah.
I tell you, another person who you worked with, Jonas Fjeld. I also had the honor of working with him. I helped arrange his Romjul's concert, his Christmas concert back in 2015. Okay. If you remember, he did that series of concerts here at Drammens Teater with some vocalists from Harlem.
Okay.
And I'm the one who put him in touch with them. One of them, in fact, the leader of that vocalist group is a longtime friend of my family. So to connect them up with Jonas Fjeld was a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And that was the start of me getting to know Tadia, as it's called.
Mr. Jensen.
But that thing where it goes beyond the musicianship, beyond the cooperation as a songwriter, and into a friendship. I kind of felt that with Tadia. I call his wife my Brit. I call her Tante my Brit, my aunt.
Oh, they're great people.
They're good people, and it's fun. The music environment in Norway is kind of a close-knit thing. Everybody knows everybody.
Well, yeah, and occasionally you come across somebody that you know who they are, and they know who you are, but you never really cross paths for whatever reason. It could be genre-based, it could be, but it is a close-knit.
Well, it's a small environment.
It's a small environment, but what really impressed me is the level of professionalism and musicality.
Yes.
I mean, I spent some time in trying to sell a band I had. I moved to New York for a while, and living in the East Village, and then rehearsing a band, and then going to playing all the clubs and stuff. And I couldn't believe how bad some of the music was, and this is in New York, and in comparison to any club in Oslo. Mm-hmm. And it's like these, I mean, I would say the ratio of like really good players in comparison to, say, at least at that time in New York scene, it was, I don't know, there's just so many cream players.
Yeah. Well, what I found out here in Norway, there's a lot of musicians who are still unknown in Norway. And maybe there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll talk about that later, but maybe it's because they have this humbleness, this Norwegian quietness, maybe the janteloven thing. But if some of these musicians and songwriters would dare to stretch themselves out a little bit, they could really make a mark on the music world here in Norway.
Yeah, but
I know one of the best guitarists I've ever heard, period, whether it's Norway, the United States, wherever, international, one of the best guitarists I've ever heard is and I say I don't mean to denigrate his work, but he is a teacher, a music teacher in Kongsberg, and that's it. That's what he does, and yet he has the potential to be one of the best out there.
Well, what it comes down to is that
it's a strange humbleness.
Well, it's a humbleness, but the other thing is as with anything, you have to sort of put yourself out there and just say, "This is what I'm doing," and say, for example, I don't have a plan B. I can't.
You're all in.
Yeah, all in. Yeah. In other words, I have a knife to my neck, and I have to. And that's what a lot of musicians did. That
Yeah.
And you have to have your own propeller.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You have to be your own promoter, practically.
Yeah, but and in many ways, it's just to be out there and be on stages playing.
Yeah.
And then people will hear and see what you do. You don't have to be out there. And for example, one of the big differences between, say, Americans and that I've noticed and Norwegians is that Americans, and I had this too, we come over and we name drop and we, and we, we're good self-promoters. We've been in America, you have to be. But here, it's like almost frowned upon.
It kind of comes off as a little abrasive here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I figured that out rather quickly.
Yeah, me too.
Not that I name dropped, but it's just in the, I believe in showing what I can do, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. I don't try to inject that conversation at every chance, but I'm not afraid to talk about what I can do. But I found out that sometimes even that is too much
for them.
It's a strange humility, a strange humbleness. I call it strange because I think it can cripple the individual artist to be as humble as some of these Norwegian artists are.
Excellent point. Because if you don't let people know, then they'll never know.
Right.
So, and there's probably a middle ground in there.
Well, I think so, because you don't want to come across as arrogant. No. You don't want to come across as always tooting your own horn, but you gotta toot a little bit, I guess.
Otherwise, no one knows you're driving a car.
Exactly. Now, how did you get? Let's go all the way back. I thought your first time coming here to Norway and kind of establishing yourself was in '83, but you tell me you were here around 10 years before that. What brought you here?
Well, many, many, many years ago, Sonny.
He's 95 years old, people. Doesn't look a day over 40.
Well, actually, next week I'm going to be 68.
Next week? Congratulations. Yeah.
68.
Anyway, I'm going to call you Uncle Jeff.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, in 1970,
you had a pause there. Were you trying to process the thought of being my uncle?
Your uncle. I could be your dad. No, in the 70s, the early 70s. Well, put it this way: in '69, I'm that old that I actually, as a 15-year-old, I lied to my mother about where I was going, and I went to Woodstock.
Did you really? As a 15-year-old. Now you were living in New York State at the time, right?
I was born and raised out in a little town called Oyster Bay.
Okay.
Out on Long Island.
Okay.
And even though it's maybe like an hour's drive from New York City, there's many people that I grew up with that had never been to New York City.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But at any rate, but there were a lot of really good music scene there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And at least out on the island, Billy Joel comes from there.
Yeah.
Twisted Sister comes from there.
Yep.
Blue Oyster Cult, and a guy named Harry Chapin was living there.
That's right.
Harry Chapin, maybe you remember that song, Cats.
Yes, Cats in the Cradle.
Yeah. Well, he was my anti-war draft counselor.
Aha.
I was politically active at the time,
against
the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
To the point where I was like being stopped by the police all the time and, frisked and what have you.
That was a crazy time.
Oh,
there was some little drip fascist type of thing from the police at that time against the hippies and the protesters, the so-called commies.
Yeah.
Interesting times.
It was interesting times, and I was like a student organizer at my high school. And we organized moratoriums where everybody just marched out of the school.
Yeah.
So I was involved with some college people that were instructing me. But
what an experience that must have been.
Yeah,
that young of an age to have. I'm kind of comparing it with today's 15, 16-year-olds. I would assume that back then there was a much higher engagement in all things socio-political than what we see in kids today.
Yeah.
You can't get a kid today to watch the news. You can't get a kid today to have a discussion about what's happening in the world.
Well, not all kids, but I would say
a lot.
Most, I think you're right. Yeah. I'm thinking about it like even before I left, we started something called the EAC, the Ecological Action Committee. This is in 1970, 71.
Yeah.
Because we saw what was coming.
Right.
Not as clearly, but we understood that
the writing was on the wall.
Yeah. And but anyway, going back to Harry Chapin, he volunteered and he was my anti-war draft counselor.
Yeah.
As was also there were two of them. Rosemary Colvin, who was Marie Colvin, the journalist who got killed in Syria. Her mother.
Oh wow! Now there's a connection.
And that in this little town.
Okay.
Maria came. She grew up around 100 meters from me, so I knew her quite well. But her mother.
For those of you who don't quite know who we're talking about, just Google these names. Push pause. Google these names and find out who these people are. You're going to learn a lot.
Marie Colvin, yeah.
Do that, yeah.
Colvin. Yeah. Anyway, these two people they were running like an anti-war draft counseling.
Yeah.
Set up. Anyway, so at that time it was the lottery. The draft lottery. And it was based on your birthday, and they would choose, spin a wheel basically. And so Harry told me that my birth date hadn't come up in the last 2 years, and that would be probably a smart thing if I left right before my birthday and just see what happens.
Okay.
So that's what I did. I got on a plane and I went to it was Icelandic Airlines that landed in Luxembourg.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know anything.
Yeah, let me get inside your thought process at that time. Now, how old were you when you took that flight?
I was a month short of 18. I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were so solid in your convictions about being against the war that you were basically willing to roll the dice on this trip. Yeah. Were you alone, or did you go with anyone else?
I was alone.
Think about that, people. Yeah. That's being firm in one's convictions. I mean, because that's quite the leap. That's quite the close your eyes and jump in the deep end.
Well, I mean, there were people that were leaving for Canada,
That's a little easier to get. It's, same language. It's just right across the border. They're practically our cousins, next door neighbors. But here you are, you're going to Europe with this melting pot of languages and cultures that are quite different from Canada. You did.
Excuse me. You have to edit that out.
No editing here. Burps, farts. Yeah, everything.
My best friend had gone to Europe, I think the year before, mostly just and had hitchhiked around and stuff. It was a much different world.
Sure.
So I felt comfortable just by the experiences he had. He just did a summer.
Yeah.
And I left in May.
Yeah.
and then I landed in Luxembourg, and then I hitchhiked into to Germany, where a friend of mine's, a guy who had been an exchange student at our school, was, and I stayed at his house for a while. And eventually made my way up to Amsterdam, and then eventually to Copenhagen, hitchhiking, no problem, you know.
Yeah. Just meeting people along the way.
Yeah. I had my guitar with me.
There you go. What did you do about sleeping arrangements? Was it that old hippie thing where you just kind of, hey, can I borrow your couch tonight? You know, was it?
I slept outside a lot. I had I would find a nice wooded place, and it was good weather. Sometimes I slept under, and they had these things called sleep-ins.
Yes. Yeah.
In almost every big city, and they were designed for young people, and you know, you'd go in and it was these long,
yeah,
you know, tons of young people sleeping on it, and
kind of like the hostels of today, but for hippies in the 70s.
I guess so.
Yeah,
I guess so. But I slept out a lot. I slept by churches and stuff, and when I think about it, I remember the backpack I had. I had a sleeping bag, and my backpack didn't weigh anything more than like 4 kilos.
Okay.
But I was not really prepared for colder weather. So I made it through the summer fine. Then I had to go buy secondhand shops. But I played on the streets.
People throwing their nickels and dimes in the hat.
Yeah, and in those days, nobody. I mean, people were not jaded. You know.
Right.
You know that you'd actually make money.
Yeah.
So, and when I got to Copenhagen, I met a Norwegian girl.
As one does.
I remember I was sitting there. It was late at night, and I was sitting by the entrance at a table, and she thought that I was like the person the receptionist. Ah. So I played that.
There, smart guy. There you go, thinking on your feet.
But we ended up hanging out for a long time together, and then she had to go back at the end of the summer. And we wrote letters to each other, and that went on for quite a while. And then in 70, backtrack. In February of 74, February of 73, the draft was discontinued.
Right.
So I said, okay, I'm going home.
Now, during all this time that you were gone, did you stay in touch with anybody back home in the States to find out if your name got pulled?
Yeah. Okay. I did. My name got pulled.
It did. And what year was that then?
That was in 72.
72.
Yeah. So as soon as you turn it, and the thing is that the only way to communicate was either by postcard. You know, you'd go to these American Express offices, and then you'd write where the next when you sent the postcard, you'd say, send your next letter, whatever, to that one, that American Express office, either in Amsterdam or in Copenhagen or Oslo, wherever it was. And I mean, making phone calls, forget it. It was, you know. So, but telegrams,
right?
You could send telegrams, which we did. My mother sent me a couple telegrams and stuff.
Were you scared? Scared about?
I don't think I was scared. My mother was scared.
Yeah.
You know. I was just sort of like, just sort of. I thought the world was a good place.
Sure.
You know.
And it is.
And it is.
Yeah, it is.
And I experienced,
even today, it is.
I didn't have any bad experiences. No weird people. No like freakos. You know.
Yeah.
So for me, it was just like, it was great. I was having a great time as well, meeting all sorts of people, playing music, and you know.
So you had no significant worries about being gone, about somebody looking for you because your name had been pulled. No. You just didn't.
No, and they just sent the letter.
Yeah.
And by the time I didn't have to go down to like Whitehall Street until actually after the draft was called off.
Yeah.
So it was I didn't even open the letter till I got back.
Okay.
No, I didn't even have a draft card.
No.
So they just. So when I got back, I got pulled over. I remember I got pulled over driving back from a gig, I guess it was, from Huntington, and they asked me, "Do you have?" Because if you didn't have a draft, you still had to have a draft card even after that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
You had to. I mean, they didn't change the law of you having
Interesting
to have a draft card on you, even though the draft was canceled.
Mm-hmm.
That particular law about having to have a
stayed on the books for quite some time.
I think a year or two. I forget. I have to check it out. But you had anyway. I had just gotten back, and I didn't have a draft card. So, and I said, "Well, it's at home." He goes, "Well, okay. I want you to bring it down to the station. On Tuesday." So on Monday, I went down to the draft because the draft boards were still open.
Okay.
And I went down there and I said, I don't have a draft card. She goes, "Yeah, but you should have registered for the draft like last year." I said, "Yeah." I said, "But I was traveling around." And she said, "Well, then you're supposed to go to an embassy." And I said, "I didn't know that."
Good answer.
I didn't. An embassy? What's an embassy?
Right.
And register there. And she looked at me. She goes, "Okay." Yeah. So she gave me a draft card.
So you took it into the...
Yeah, take it. And in those days, they would just type it. Type it.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to sign it.
Gosh, things were so easy back then. Mm. I look at how things are so much easier today from, for example, when I came here to Norway, Snoopy took me to the police station here in Drammen. And we didn't even have to stand in line. There was no line. So we walk up to this counter, told them that I was here in Norway. They took a copy of my passport, gave me another date to come back, like in a year, I think it was, to register again, and said, "Welcome to Norway." That was it. This was in 2002.
Yeah.
And everything now is this long bureaucratic process. So then that was in 2002. So going back to the mid 70s, looking how much easier things were back then.
Well, I didn't actually make my way to Norway until 74.
Now, was this to hook up again with that Norwegian woman?
Well, what happened was when I got back and I enrolled in a state college. And I did a semester there, and then some friends of mine, we started a band up there, of course, and they all said, "Oh, you've been to Europe? Yeah, that's cool. Let's go this summer, So we all did, we all went and we painted a house and stuff, and got enough money to and we actually bought an old VW microbus,
Yeah.
And then drove around, and she came down to meet us. And so we drove we played on the streets all over Europe.
Yeah.
It's a great band, too. It was a string band, it's like... 2 fiddles, and we had one fiddle player there, but it's funny because the whole band had been also studying at the same dojo.
Oh, really?
And the bass player.
We'll put on a good show for you, and we'll kick your ass afterwards too.
But it was quite handy because there was a couple of situations when it came in handy.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And So she came down, and then her father had died, and they had a farm outside of Haugesund.
Okay.
And she invited the whole band to come stay at that farm, which we did.
Nice.
So we came up in, I guess it was late August, and installed ourselves there. And word got around in Haugesund, because it was like 20 kilometers outside of Haugesund.
Yeah.
In a place called Heia, which is in Førdesfjorden, out in the Tisvat. And word got around, and all of a sudden, all these musicians, young musicians, became interested in us, and so we had all these jam sessions, And being from America, we would go buy beer and put it in the refrigerator, and they'd come.
They didn't get it.
They didn't get it, and of course, So anyway,
did you probably experienced the fact that being American at that time, American musician at that time, kind of gave you guys a lift. It kind of opened doors for you, I would imagine.
A lift. Listen to this. One of the first real concerts we played was down in Farsund, which I'm actually going to play at the same place this summer. But
Farsund, yeah.
Yeah. But they put on a concert, and just saying that we were from America. This is at the movie theater. I mean, I guess the Kulturhus, whatever it was. It was packed just because they didn't know who we were.
Yeah.
We were just from America.
From America,
yeah. And it was packed.
I love it. Is that Americanness something that gives you a lift still today as a musician, as an entertainer?
Well,
people know you, now you have a name for yourselves. So maybe that Americanness is of less meaning today.
I think
I don't know.
People here, they look at me as being sort of like, yeah, but you're Norwegian. I say, no, I'm not. But they look at me as sort of, as that.
You're part of the family.
Yeah, I've been here that long. I think maybe the only distinction it has is that when I do Americana music, it may have a little bit more authenticity to it.
Right.
Maybe.
Because I think it probably does. Listening to the music that you play, I hear that you're the real deal. And I don't want to say anything negative against any Norwegian artists or bands who are playing that Americana style. But I think you can hear, it's like if I were to try and write a song that included a Hallingfelle, I would struggle. I may be able to pull it off, but you would hear that there's something that's not quite right. There's a cultural thing. There's an identity thing. You've been here for all these years, several decades, but you still have that inner identity as an American, and I would imagine it comes out in your art. That's what I hear anyway.
Yeah.
When I listen to what you do.
Yeah. And of course, I'm mostly known here as a lyricist.
Yeah.
Well, that's only because I wrote a bunch of lyrics for people who didn't know how to write English lyrics back in the 80s.
Isn't that an advantage that we have? That's how I got my foot in the door.
But that's
they want those lyrics, but they kind of struggle with getting the syntax and the meaning down themselves. So there's my gig. Yeah,
exactly. And the decade of it, but now, because the kids now, they are so ingrained with English. They're really, really good. So basically now, I think if we'd come today, we wouldn't have that same advantage because some of them are so damn good at English. However, I would flip the coin. I've been in Norway 35, 37 years maybe, and I speak Norwegian, and I have tried to write Norwegian lyrics. I can't, even though I think maybe I've cracked the cultural code, the language code. It doesn't work.
My spoken Norwegian is almost flawless, but you're a step ahead of me because I've never even tried. I've never even put my mind into that concept of writing a song in Norwegian. There's no sense in me trying to do that because, well, for example, you hear I speak English with Snoopy. When I'm home, I speak English with the wife and
as
kids.
I do with my wife.
Exactly. And that's because that part of my identity is so solidified after all these years. It's odd for me to speak Norwegian. Even though I do it well, it's odd for me because I don't feel that I'm myself. And how can I write a good song lyric if I don't feel like myself? That's my feeling. So I don't even try. I've never tried.
I did try.
How did it feel?
I had written.
How traumatic was it?
It came from a song that I'd written in English that Sissel Kyrkjebø.
Oh,
she liked.
What a beautiful woman.
Yeah, and what a beautiful voice. My God, it's like
good Lord.
She had wanted to possibly record it if it was in Norwegian, because there were, and so I tried my hand at translating it. Yeah, that was my first. And to do that, you really have to start from the bottom up. And I had to go to Claudia to fix it.
Claudia Scott.
Yeah, she had to fix it up, and it actually didn't make it on the album. I have the demo of it at home of Sissel singing it, but it didn't make it onto that record. But it was my first attempt.
That was your first.
But I realized, and I'm thinking to myself, if I'm having such a hard time writing, I mean, getting the grammar correct and everything, and the turn of phrase in Norwegian, and I've been here this long, then how about all these Norwegians that are writing in English?
Yeah. I don't know. For me, and maybe I'm not skilled enough. I don't know what it is, but for me, I feel like if I were to try to express myself in song in Norwegian, I would lose a lot of the poesy. A lot of that playing with words, a lot of that visionary, that diffuse vision that comes out when I write in English. I don't know that I could do that in Norwegian. And I guess I don't want the disappointment, so I've never tried. Coward that I am. I've never even tried. Hats off to you that that has done it.
I tried a second one, but I forget which one it was. But it's at any rate, I tried that. But well, anyway, going back to that timeline there. So
yeah, where are we now? Now you've come back. You're at the farm in Haugesund. Yeah, they love you guys because you're American.
And a bunch of musicians started coming out there, and I met. Yeah. That's where I met Taye Chin, who was living. He was living there, even though he's from the East, but his mother had moved to Haugesund. And Kalle Osland and Eivind Staveland and all these guys. Oh, there was a really good music milieu in Haugesund at the time. Really was.
Yeah.
Especially sort of like, and it was very open. A lot of bands and what have you. Ivar Rudy, a good friend of mine. He's, and they, anyway, I eventually went back to study in 1975.
Back to New York.
And I started studying upstate at Binghamton, Harper College. And Marit came over she came over in 1976.
So you guys had this back and forth relationship the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Traveled cross country, did a trip back, and then and she was staying with me at the. We were living on a commune. 80
this
acres.
Is the 70s, folks. Yeah. This is the 70s.
Yeah. Made our own vegetables, all vegetarians, and karate. The whole, it was early New Age shit. That
way of thinking, that way of living, rather, is coming back. Snoopy has a good girlfriend here in Norway who's living in a commune.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a good way to live.
It's a good way to live.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun too.
Absolutely.
We played music every day. My God. And anyway,
isn't that how you become good at it? You just have to repeat it. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was almost like having a rehearsal every day, but we didn't call it rehearsal.
It's just playing. Yeah.
So, and then she went back, and then I went, and she went back to school, and I went back over in 1977. And stayed for a year. Went back again, and we both went back, and we this was cool. We got jobs working for on an estate on Long Island, on the Gold Coast of Long Island, which was near Oyster Bay, as gardeners.
It was probably easy for her to get that job. Nowadays, you got to go for the green card, and that takes forever. Back then, you would just start working. Probably.
We in 1977. We got married in.
Oh, you got married eventually. Yeah. Okay.
Well, that was we knew that if she was going to be able to work, we had to do that.
Okay, I see.
So we did get married and went over, and had this job at Vikings Cove. It was owned by the Baker family, they started the first national robber barons.
Okay.
The closest neighbors were like the Morgans, J.P. Morgan. These people, they spoke with fake. We called it Locust Valley Lockjaw. They spoke with fake English accents.
Okay. Huh.
They thought, I guess they were old money. When I'm watching this TV show, it's the Gilded Age now. I can see that this is where they came from.
Now, this is on Long Island somewhere. Right?
It's on the north coast of Long Island, the Gold Coast, they call it, right near Oyster Bay.
There is I saw this on some podcast. Who was talking about this? Somebody on another podcast was talking about there's an area in coastal Virginia where they speak with that fake British accent, right in the middle of hillbilly land in Virginia, but they've got that British accent. Yeah. So they have that on Long Island as well.
Oh,
or they did back then.
They did then. You're joking.
Oh, yeah.
Buffy. And they all had names like Trip. Like if the guy's name was like Thurston the Third, then they called him Trip.
Trip.
Anyway, the great-grandson of the great-great-grandson, he inherited what was their summer house, 75-room Georgian mansion right on the water. This was a summer home, okay?
Wow.
And with servants' quarters and the whole thing. But they gave us the chauffeur's cottage.
Okay.
Beautiful, like all.
So this is old money meets 70s hippie. Yeah. What a clash that is.
Michael, who Michael Martineau, he's the one who inherited it. He was the sugar daddy for a band called the Holy Modal Rounders.
Holy Modal Rounders.
Who were they were like close in New York City. They were closely related to the Fugs. One of them. Yeah. And Sam Shepard was involved with them, and it's like but he was their sugar daddy. He bought them a bus, a sound system. Yeah. And these people would show up, and this was his I guess it was his rich man's guilt.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Message to all rich men who feel guilty. I'd like to speak with you. There's a couple of projects you could fund.
Yeah, he did. He funded it. And in fact,
that's actually not that unusual. There's a lot of rich people, not a lot, but you hear about that even today, where they'll fund an art project or a band. But it seems like a lot of them gravitate towards art, painters and sculptors, and they'll fund that.
Oh, yeah.
Out of guilt, you say?
Well, no, I don't know if it's guilt. There's two aspects to it.
Yeah.
Because when philanthropy is something you can brag about.
That's true. That's true.
And they like, I think the extreme of it is just like when your name's on a library. or
put my name on the building and you'll get X number of millions. Yeah.
But this was more like he had just inherited, and nobody in that entire lineage needed to work. None of them. Yeah. And many of them were so rich that they were impoverished.
I understand the concept.
Oh man, they I strongly believe that when you wake up in the morning, you need a mission.
Snoopy and I talk about that a lot. I'm not going to say her name, but Snoopy has a very close girlfriend who just won some millions in the Norwegian lottery. And so her and Snoopy and me and Snoopy have been talking about that. How would winning or coming across that much money change our lives? And I think if you're grounded and if you're generally happy in your life, it's really not, that kind of money isn't really going to change your life in essence. I mean, you may take a trip, you may do this, do that, and the other, but some people are in a position in their life to where no matter how much money they have, they're going to be unhappy. Mm-hmm. They may use the money on foolish things that harm themselves or others. Yeah,
I have a good friend of mine. I don't even know. Did you know Karen Bennett Lind?
No.
She was in Norway also from '83.
Okay.
And she was originally from South Carolina and married a Norwegian journalist, top-blood journalist. And when her father died, I think she inherited a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And well, maybe I shouldn't say names, but she didn't use it in a good way. Ah. She didn't know how to handle it. But I've seen that happen. And I've also, on the other hand, I've also seen bands that I've written for where they were like really tied to the earth, they're grounded and stuff. And then all of a sudden they get like famous and they just go off, they lose it.
Yeah.
Their heads get really big. They think that
Isn't that the saddest thing?
It's terrible. And I said it to, I remember, I won't say who it was, but we're walking down the street and he was like,
had that little swagger.
Yeah, that swagger. And it's like, I'm the highest paid rock and roll singer in Norway and blah, blah, blah. And I can go to the front of any line and stuff. I said, let's go to Sweden.
Smart guy. Let's go to Sweden
Let's go to
second.
Sweden just to make his head, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because no one will know who you are.
I've seen people also who have come across success, whether it's financial or you know, through their job or through art, meet success and it just ruined them.
Mm.
That tells me that there was something that wasn't in place before the fame came, you know?
That's true.
And it's a sad thing to see. And I'm sitting here saying, oh, if I, you know, all of a sudden had a top, you know, #1 song in Norway, it wouldn't change me. And I'd like to think that it wouldn't. But I think that process of thinking it through to double check, okay, how would I react to that? I think that right there, there's some health in that. There's some solid ground in people who actually have that inner dialogue with themselves. You know, what would I do if I was in that situation? Yeah.
No, I don't think you really know what you're doing until you got there.
No, but again, if you're, you know, if I'm sitting here already thinking about it, you know, what would I do? That there is preventive in itself.
Yeah.
Just that thought process keeps me grounded anyway.
Yeah,
I don't know if it would for
that
anyone
it even
else,
crosses your mind.
Yeah.
Is a clear sign of good mental health.
You know, I think about Martin Hagfors. If you're listening, Martin, I love you. I embarrassed the heck out of him when he was here. I told him I loved him. I told him I think he's a good person at heart, and you should have seen how red he got, and all of a sudden he wasn't talking very much because he got so embarrassed by me complimenting him. But I think about him all the time. He is such a prolific musician and songwriter. I could see that guy doing something similar to the Hellbillies and just constantly staying out there on tour, the big tours and stuff. But what does Martin focus on? Music for children. And I think that is beautiful. That says a lot about how grounded he is. You know, doing these children's albums and touring at the schools and doing work for the children. It's not every prolific songwriter. It's not every legendary songwriter and musician who would do that.
No, but Martin has a very large child in him.
Yes, he does. Yeah,
he does, and I think he relates really well to other children.
Yeah.
Really
I can see that in him. Yeah.
And I think one of the things, I mean, I think so, he's been really good at sort of keeping that child alive in him.
I think so.
And he's a good communicator to
absolutely,
especially children. But I mean, I wouldn't write him off in terms of his. I mean, some of the work that he's done. I mean, he did what I would call the first. If you look at what Americana sounds like today, he was doing it like in the 90s here with Homegrown. I mean, it's and even the sounds that you hear today, all those sounds Martin had done already. That was a great band. And then later when he's
that was a great band. I love Homegrown.
Yeah, I mean it was fantastic. Me too, a fantastic band. And then the his solo projects. I mean, they're so mature and they're so what should I say?
It's so real. It's he writes the kind of music that speaks to anybody. You know, that Americana genre, as much as I love it, it's not the top genre for me. And yet when I hear Martin play it, all of a sudden in that moment, it is the top genre. There's a reality to the way he writes and the way he performs. One of my all-time favorite songs, and this goes back to how I first found out about Martin. My brother-in-law, this was just days after I moved here to Norway, my brother-in-law says to me, if you want to learn real Norwegian, you need to, and you're a musician, John, so listen to this music. And he showed me a CD of the Hellbillies. He was screwing with me, telling me real Norwegian. Of course, if you don't know that, they're singing in a very distinct dialect. But I didn't take it for humor. I took it for goofisk, as we say here in Norway. So I started listening to that music and I started studying it. And to this day, because of that, I have certain words and phrases that are in that that are in that dialect. So it's the Hellbillies' fault for screwing up my my Norwegian. But I came across their song Rötter, and then someone told me that Martin Hagfors wrote the original in English. And then that was my whole thing to wanting to find out more about Martin, which led me across to you and others. And it's just, that I think that's a testimony to the tightly bound culture of music here in Norway. If you know one person, you know another, or one person's music is going to lead you to the music of another, and so on. And you're right in the mix of it. So maybe you don't see how, or do you see how powerful this, and maybe it's powerful to the extent of being slightly exclusionary, this thing called Norwegian music.
This thing called Norwegian music. Exclusionary in what sense?
In the sense that there's you guys, you, Martin, Hellbillies, Claudia Scott. There's that, you guys are that solid, established, veteran, Olga Alexanderson, people like that.
I don't know if I don't know if it's exclusionary. I think I think the door is always open. Especially, when you hear something good, then nobody's scared to say, wow, this is cool. It's like, I talking about doors being open. I have in my house, I have an old house that I restored. I mean, it was an old barn, actually.
What town are you living in anyway?
I live out on the west side of Sandvika.
Okay.
It's up on this hill called Young, and and we bought this house. I was a musician, so I had, I needed a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
And luckily, when I was, I've always been a good with physical labor, because that's when I was sort of, as a musician back in the States, like I was landscaping, I was gardening,
okay, yeah.
I was painting houses, I had my best friend who I played with, Kevin Eggy, was a carpenter.
Okay.
And I got a good story with Kevin Eggy. And whenever I needed extra money, which was often, I called him up and said, "You need anybody to work with you today?" Something. Yeah, I got a project going on here. So, and I really learned. Yeah. I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
So that when I came over and started to restore this house, well, I had most of the talents that were necessary.
Yeah.
And together with a friend, Fred Borg, who helped me, we took this house that was basically falling in, and because
not falling apart, falling in.
Yeah, well, the roof was completely rotted and stuff. But Fred crawled through the bottom of the house, and there was nothing. There was no as they call soap.
Yeah.
What's that?
Fungus.
Fungus. Or like nothing. And the county said that it couldn't be ripped down and built up again because of it was like, what do you call it?
It's that bad off.
No, it couldn't be.
Yeah.
Because there were so many. In Norway, they have something called the Riksantikvar.
Oh yeah. Of course.
What is that?
Of course, yeah. What is that in English? Historical value. But that doesn't really describe what Riksantikvar.
At any rate, the foundation was built in such a way that they don't build anymore, and
see.
And the building was of a type that they don't build anymore. So they gave me a certain set of parameters, where I had to keep those windows and preserve this and use it. And actually, I had to keep the roof tiles were of from the middle 1800s.
Wow.
So I had to take each of them down and clean them. Thousands.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I fixed up this house and I bought it for I guess in those days it was probably around $80,000, around 600,000 kroner, I guess, in 1990 something. And I've spent, 30 years restoring it and fixing it up.
That must give you a lot of satisfaction.
Yeah.
I'm not handy with a hammer and nails at all, but I wish I was. And I can see the satisfaction that one must get from having a long-term project like that with some sort of, I almost said antique, but it's more than antique. There's historic value in it. It must feel good.
It feels really good. Not only that, but I've built it with music in mind.
Oh, I love it. Built with music in mind.
Yeah, I did. And of course I wanted to wire the whole,
I love it.
I wanted to wire the whole living room up so we could just plug in and do like sessions there. My wife kind of vetoed that, but what we do is we've been having house concerts there for basically since 2007, I think.
And that is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I haven't done that here, but we had another house quite some years ago with a huge open living room. And to sit there, and it wasn't a concert, but just jam sessions, practicing with my band.
Yeah.
That's something I want to do in this space here, to put on the radio show. I've got 2 bands lined up to do it. I just have to schedule it. That's going to be fun. Just, right in here.
Sure.
Candles, little coffee.
Candles and coffee.
Yeah, that's all you need.
But, so...
I guess I shouldn't have said that the Norwegian music scene is exclusionary. I want to readdress that. Norwegians have a tendency to be skeptical when a newcomer shows up, when an outsider steps into their environment. Surely you've seen that up through the years. And I'm not saying all of them, but there is a tendency for a good percentage. I'll put it to you this way. We came down here to Drammen in 2014. Before that, we were up in Finnmark and Nord-Troms. Yeah.
Wow. That must have been something for you.
Well, actually, on a little side note, you saw, or you see where we are here, you see how quiet it is. We're right in the middle of the city. And the only way I tolerate being in the city like this is because this particular neighborhood is kind of closed off. There's no through traffic and it's very quiet. I'm a country boy at heart. Yeah. So a city like this, it takes part of my essence away. I mean, I am a country boy at heart.
Well,
so, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, let me interview you a bit.
Go ahead. Should we switch seats?
Where are you from?
I'm from Ohio.
Yeah. Ohio, okay.
Yeah.
What part?
It's a little place called Norton, Ohio. Akron, Ohio is the closest city. It's about 50 minutes from Cleveland. So I'm talking about corn country. Yeah. It was a predominantly white little village. It was called the Village of Norton at the time. Now it has city status. But back then when I was growing up, it was quite rural. Yeah. So that's me at heart. Yeah. So to go, now after that, of course, I did my time in the military and I was a police officer in the Chicago area. So Chicago, right? Third largest city. And while it was a lot of fun, it was I learned a lot about life in general, learned a lot about myself while I was there working as a cop. It never felt like home. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't, that's just not me to be surrounded like that by so many people. So, and that's where I met Snoopy. That's a whole story in itself. I'll tell you about that also. But when we moved up to Nord-Troms, or first to Finnmark, where her people are from, I felt like home. Okay. I felt like that was home because it was away from the city, the hustle and bustle. It was quiet. You know everybody. Everybody knows you. And if they don't know you, they're going to ask so that they can get to know you. And that's what I miss. I miss that. It's fine here. My wife loves it here. The kids are doing fantastic. I have the things I do with my podcast and music and, good friends coming in and stuff. And I probably wouldn't be able to do it to the same degree if we were living that far out in the districts up north. So I see the benefits of being here, but this doesn't feel fully comfortable for me. And I don't dwell on it. I've adjusted and I do it. I don't want my wife to feel guilty, but I like seeing that she and the kids are doing so well here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been talking about music and stuff, and I've been thinking about how much I sacrificed, how much family time I sacrificed putting sort of music, because as a musician, you have to work 12-hour days, but you work twice as much as anybody else, and you make less than a factory worker. For many, it goes up and down. But,
yeah.
But I was thinking about when I finally realized that no, family first.
Yeah.
Family first. I think about how much time that my kids actually paid the price of me sort of like going off on tour, and I have to do this, and I can't be home for Christmas because I make more money touring up in northern Norway. And
but I think I can counter that. How about the idea that if Papa's out there doing what he loves, the time that Papa is home, he's a more relaxed and loving Papa.
Yeah,
I'm sure they see that.
Yeah, but
I'm sure they see that.
There's something in the years when I was on the road a lot, because I can tie this together with the point we were in my stories in '77, where I started a band called Gone at Last with these guys from Haugesund. Mm-hmm. And that band eventually morphed. That band was 7 people, including Eivind Stavland. And at one point, Norwegians are strange because they, in Norway, you have to choose your musical tribe. I mean, if you go way back, you had to choose the Beatles or the Stones.
Yeah.
You couldn't like both. But here, we were playing American music, Celtic music, blues, everything mixed into the same thing.
Yeah.
And these guys, somewhere, they decided, no, we're going to break the band up into 2 different bands. One is going to do the American music, and the other guys, they became Vestlandsfonden.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I
didn't know that can be traced directly back to you. I never picked up on that. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Not only that, but I don't want to say, but I mean, the band that I came over with, we were playing really old timey folk music, but for me, American music also meant, doing stuff from Mississippi John Hurt, or, basically the whole breadth of American folk music. But but I definitely me and the guys in the band definitely influenced this group of people that I'm talking about. Yeah. But we also did Celtic music too.
Yeah.
Because we liked that. I grew up in the town I grew up in was they all serviced the real rich people.
Yeah.
And it was like lots of Irish, Italian, African American, and then there were these, I guess, where I lived, they called it Hanukkah Hill because it was the only Jews that were living up there. But we all, because there were 3 Jewish families there. But it was a really good mix. It's
a good mix for cultural and musical influence.
Oh yeah, it was great.
It really is. Yeah.
I mean, and I think about the musicianship that came out of that town. Even though they're not famous and stuff, but they're all the ones that kept at it.
Yeah.
How do I tie this back to Norway?
You guys were the band that you had with you in Haugesund.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the guys was half Swedish, half Irish. So, and he played the Irish harp and he played the penny whistle, but he also played the banjo and exactly. So we were doing that whole repertoire, and these when we left, that band broke into 2.
Right.
The guys who wanted to do American music, they called themselves Gone at Last, and then the guys who wanted to do more Celtic type music, they became Vestlandsfonden, and Radolf Brendeland was writing in that genre at the time.
Yeah.
And then that band broke up into another band. It became Vestlandsfonden and Vamp.
Vamp.
Yeah.
I'm just learning some music genealogy here. I never would have connected the 2. I never would have.
That's
okay.
It all came out of that trip, actually. Yeah.
Musicology 101, folks, right here on this show, Coming Home with John Allen. Musicology 101. I never would have connected that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
interesting.
And that band Gone at Last. When I came back again in '77, I started playing with them, and then my friend, the guy who I told you about, Warren Karlstrom, who was half Swedish and half Irish, he had met a Norwegian girl and moved back to Norway before I'd come back, and he had started doing these Rikskonserten, the programs in American folk music. So I was coming over and helping him with those, and they were living in Hardanger.
Okay.
So in 1980, I came back. In 1981, I came back again, and that's when I applied for my first work permit in Kvam, in Norheimsund.
Kvam, yeah.
And that's the same experience that you had. You went to the police, and I said,
it's just a quick little
I'm here.
thing,
and they gave me a work permit.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, uphold, and not only that, like it was permanent.
Yeah. Mine was permanent too, but I had to come back in a year, not to renew it, but to get the actual resident ID card.
Well, they didn't have.
They didn't have that back then.
They just had a big stamp in your. I still have all my passports. Yeah. However, at the time, this is really interesting, and this is for this shows how sort of innocent and dumb I was. I was just thinking about music.
Yeah.
And sort of.
So you had that focus all this time.
Oh yeah.
It was everything was for the purposes of solidifying your music gig.
Or just but I mean the thing is, when you're young, you don't need that much money.
That is true.
You know, and I wasn't as long as I had enough to survive and pay my rent wasn't very much. No. Roof over your head wasn't that much. I bought a secondhand car. You know, it all worked.
Yeah.
The thing is that what they didn't tell me is that if you're going to stay in Norway, you've got to go and get a social security number.
Personnummer.
Nobody told me that.
Nobody.
So, but what they did tell me was because it's specified that I'm working for Rikskonserterna and Forsvarets, the military. Forsvarets Velfärdskontor. What would that be?
The military, almost like a USO.
USO, yeah.
Yeah, similar. Yeah.
And they said, there's no problem. Anything you make over $10,000, half of it goes to the Norwegian state.
Oh, really?
Because they had and I didn't need more than $10,000.
Yeah, that was big money back. Well, it was more than enough to live on back then. If you're a single guy and just gigging around the country, times are so simple.
Yeah, but it actually came back to bite me, and because I applied for my pension.
Yeah.
And I it wasn't until
I know what you're going to get at. Yeah.
I haven't. It wasn't until I moved in 1983. I moved to Oslo.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy who started who was following my band, Gone at Last, which was sort of, we were doing swing and Texas swing and bluegrass and blues. We were doing a lot of, good band.
Yeah.
A lot of people still know who that band was. Terje Chin and Kalle Osland and Jørgen Bergerberg and myself. And we're playing all over. We were touring even, we had at least over 100 touring days a year.
Yes.
And he told me, he goes, who's doing your taxes? Because I can do them. I said, taxes?
Explain this concept, taxes, please.
And the thing is, the IRS, I'd always sent my stuff into the IRS, but when I left, I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
It just didn't cross my mind.
Yeah.
Total spacehead. You know, I wasn't built to be a businessman.
But even today, that is actually very common for a lot of Americans who come here. They just stop thinking about taxes back home. Which, that's a whole nother discussion about I'll say this. I think it's ridiculous that an American living in Norway, working in Norway with no assets back in the States still has to file taxes in the States. It's ridiculous.
I didn't.
I'll just say that.
We can do a little chapter on that because I have my story there too. But at any rate, it came back to bite me because I didn't really get my social security number or my personnummer.
Yeah.
And I wasn't registered in the pension. With my pension until 1983.
Okay. Yeah.
So when I applied, was it last year? I said, well, you need to be 40 years in the system to even get what they call the minimum.
Yeah.
And I said, oh man, I said, but here's my work permit from 1981. I should be, that's exactly 40 years. Yeah. No, but you don't have a person number until 1983. So I've got no, I mean, it's funny because I guess I have good genes. My mother was a teacher, and she, I guess she looked young. They didn't even ask her age until she was 75 and said, are you thinking about retiring? How old are you? And she said, I'm 75. I went, what?
Wow. Wow. Good genes. There you go.
Yeah. But she had a lot of energy.
Yeah.
She died last year, but at 90.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But she had a good life. 94, just almost 95. But it's funny. People go, I see on Facebook all my friends from high school. They're all like, yeah, we're retiring now. Retiring? What is that? That doesn't even exist in my thinking.
I don't think about that either. For me, it's a blessing to be able to do the things I do. And to retire from doing these things that I do that I love so much that it's fun. How do you retire from having fun? I don't understand that.
Good question.
No,
but I mean, even to the fact of the matter is that to earn a living, doing what I do, working as a freelancer, you constantly have a knife to your neck to be creative.
Yes.
And I don't mind that. It keeps me being creative.
I enjoy those challenges.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And my wife said, "Oh no, we can like relax and settle down and just travel." I said, "Yeah, maybe we can." I said, "But I love doing what I do."
Well,
and actually, I didn't mind when they said, "Well, you kind of have to work at least 2 more years."
Yeah. And you're like, okay, 2 more years of creativity, 2 more years of fun.
Well, I think I'll always be creative, but having the knife to my neck for 2 more years, I could have done without that, but I don't mind it, because I want to earn.
I know what you mean. It's an element of stress, but looked at in the proper way, that stress is positive stress. It's what keeps us moving. It lifts us up. Let me ask you along the lines of stress. Have you ever gotten a gig to write for somebody and you're stuck? See, because writing for myself, for my own project, if it's not coming, I don't, I'm not going to yell at myself for not being able to produce something. But if I have another band or another artist who's asking for a song, that's a little different. And if things aren't really flowing, that's a different feeling than if it's a project for myself. How do you tackle that? Are you going to tell me you're so good you never stress about writing? No, I'm just kidding.
At the moment, it's funny you asked the question because I'm there.
Are you really?
Yeah, I accepted a challenge from, what's his name? Diedrich. I'm terrible. He had 3 names. Trying
to think, Diedrich.
Anyway,
hi Diedrich.
He sings sort of classical pop. He's sort of like a Josh Groban type of thing.
Oh.
Yeah. And he gave me a piece of music that is extremely complicated, and it's not like verse, chorus, it's not none of the common forms. And he left it up to me to find out what parts of the music I should write the lyrics over, and it's and I sat down. I said, and we discussed it because I always have a long discussion about what this is going to be about. Because I want they're going to sing something. It's got to come from something they
can relate to.
Yeah, and I've been working on it, I think, for over a month now.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like it's knocking me in the head. It's like, and sometimes when I think that the dam is broken and it's flowing, I come back to it like, and I go, this isn't any good, and so, but I'm not going to give up.
So you've been stuck for a month.
Yeah.
I wish at times I could only be stuck for a month. I had his name is Øystein Remme. He wanted to come out with a solo. He's in the Remy Brothers band, but he wanted a solo album, country. And I've never written country before, but he wanted me to write the lyrics for every song on that album. So you talk about a songwriting challenge. A lot of people, I don't know what your thoughts are, but some people think that songwriting is just songwriting, just find the lyrics. But I'm going to write different if I'm writing for hard rock as opposed to pop, as opposed to folk, as opposed to, in this case, country. So I've written for all those other types of artists, but never country. And I thank the good Lord that Eystein was a very patient man, because, you know, there were some songs that just came right away. Some songs I had to work on for a few weeks. There's one song on that album that took me 3.5 years. But Eystein was always, you know, he had his regular gig. So this was just a side project, and whenever it was ready, it would be ready. 3.5 years to get the feel and the vibe and the lyrics right for one of those songs on the album. But sometimes that's just the way it is.
Sometimes it's the way it is. Sometimes, I mean, I even know with my own stuff,
you probably set aside songs. You're trying to
they'll
write.
be in the drawer for like a long time. But I know this is
Yeah.
a really good song. I have a couple still that they're not finished, but I do finish them. That's the important thing.
Don't you just love that songwriting process? I can't describe it. It's this feeling when the creativity comes and the goosebumps, and then it's the process of getting it down in black and white, and then the rehearsal of it to make sure it matches, and then the presentation to the other artist, and they love it.
Yeah.
That whole process is so giving.
Well, I do a little bit of guest teaching, you know, and lecturing at different music schools and colleges. Yeah,
cool.
About lyric writing, because after you've written 400 lyrics, you get good at it. I wasn't planning this. I was not planning to be like lyricist. No. But there was like a tsunami of people asking, you know, and then it's like anything you do, you know, the 10,000 hour rule.
Right. Exactly.
You know, you get good at something. Yeah. So, at any rate, but I tell the students, and I mean this, and I tell myself this constantly, that if you're not content with the fact that the only riches you might get are from the process,
because not every song is a hit.
No,
not every song is going to bring royalty income.
And especially now, I mean, I was lucky to be in the business in a time when there was the physical format. Yeah. Physical format, I could write a whole album, and like the songs that were at the bottom of like 8, 9, and 10, or 11, like they still, the mechanical still came in with, depending on how many they sold. Yeah. Even if they didn't get played and you didn't get your performance royalties on, at least you had some money coming in. And it was every album I wrote for was a new lottery ticket. Yeah. You know? Yeah. It was.
That's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
It was. Some of the bands did really well. Some of them did medium well, but it also afforded me the chance to write for somebody who I really liked, even though I knew they weren't going to sell bupkis, you know?
Well, it's relationship building. I know for me, when I write a song for somebody, I do it because I love that person and the work they're doing. Yeah. And there's something solidifying within that relationship when you write for somebody.
That's true, but it's like now I must say that the streaming economy has changed everything because the royalties that you make from what used to be mechanicals, which are now streaming and stuff, it's if the artists are getting crumbs, we're getting dust.
It's so insignificant.
And I have to put food on the table. Yeah. So I've had to tell, like, even like people who I wrote for years, and they used to be top sellers, and they come to me and they now they're just not selling very much, but they you know, I know that maybe I'll make 100 kroner, even if they're, you know, or 200 kroner from the streaming, and I'll have to sell them. Luckily, Nopa. You should try Nopa. I'm
going to write that down because I think Martin mentioned that to me, and Lars Voldstad. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes in my mind and then out. But Nopa, I'm going to.
Yeah. And they put up what they call, they put up basic rates now for like writing music to lyric.
Yeah.
Or writing lyric to music,
yeah.
or writing both. And it's actually up around, I mean, you think about it, I figured it, I've worked it out that I actually spend average, if I take a song, I'll spend, finished, polished lyric, three full days.
Yeah.
You know, completely polished. Sometimes, like, okay, I'll have it in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it'll, like you said, it'll take a month.
Yeah.
But average. Yeah. So, I mean, and I think they're for writing a lyric to like a normal, like 3 to 6 minutes long, whatever, is 8,500 kroner.
Mm.
And I tell people I need that up front now. Yeah. And I tell it to everybody because the other side of the coin is that the time that you spend writing for somebody whose music you love or a song you love, you could also be writing it for your own song.
Exactly. Well, you nailed it right there. It's about, I think a lot of people, maybe not musicians, but people outside the music world, people who are just music consumers, they forget about the job aspect of it, how much time we put into it, and when you think, the average for you is 3 days, that's actually a lot of work to get nothing for monetarily.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't think about that. Well, we certainly do.
Well, what I like to tell now is because a lot of the musicians that came up during the 80s and 90s and 2000s, they're used to that you just do it for free and then you take your royalties.
Keep your royalties, yeah.
And
now you keep your royalties even though you're taking your upfront.
Yeah. My Tono royalties are still.
Well, that's your legacy.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And but a lot of them, I tell them, look, if you go into a studio for a day and you hire a bass player,
think about it.
I said, they're making more money than I'll be making per day. But, so, I mean, it's been a real challenge to get other, especially other songwriters who just write music to understand that.
Yeah.
There's so many guys. Arne Skage asked me to write for his last album. I said, I can't do it unless I can, I said, but you can, for example, get funding for it. Mention my name and there's a good chance you'll get it, or these guys from...
There's an art form to writing those applications for funding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Eystein, the guy who I wrote the country album for, is great at that. I've never tried to get funding for anything.
You should. I didn't figure that out until I was in my mid-40s. Yeah. I didn't apply for anything.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, "Yeah, you should write."
But that says something about your work ethic. You do the work. You do what it takes to fund that yourself
through
Americans.
The work that you do.
Americans. Well, there you go.
We're used to. We're not used to going and getting a handout.
Yeah.
I
should. I am. Now I've written it down. NOPA is going to hear from me, and I need to get,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's a great organization, too. And not only that, there's a lot of, you'll meet, they have a lot of gatherings and stuff, and there's, you get to meet a lot of people from your own planet.
And I love doing that because at times I feel isolated. I don't get out enough amongst the other people working in this crazy art called music. But something like that, being a part of that organization, would give me a good reason to get more out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I have my solid group of friends in the music business and people who I write with and write for, and I haven't really taken any steps to expand on that.
Well, there's also these, I've been involved in a lot of these sort of gatherings where we'll 6, 7 writers will go to a cabin and stuff and write.
Yeah.
There was supposed to be, Martin and I were supposed to be involved with one this last, it got called off, but I'll let you know when the next one is, and that'd be a good idea to get you involved there.
Yeah, give a holler, man. I'm up for it.
But that idea of, and I keep that in my mind, is if I'm not satisfied with being enriched by the process, it is the process that enriches you. And if you get money on top of it, that's even better.
Yeah, and at times I have kind of a blasé attitude about the financial aspects of it. But having said that, I'm not one of these people who feels, and I hear this a lot, and again, it's that strange humbleness, that ultra humbleness that I see from some Norwegian artists, where they'll verbalize it and say that I don't think about the money because I'm afraid it will, or because I don't want it to get in the way of my art. And I don't see any problems with combining the two, because to me, if you have the finances in order, that's just going to make it easier for you to express your art.
Yes,
Am I right?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. You need.
So I think,
you can't write on an empty stomach.
You can't. Well, you could for a while.
Yeah, but
seriously, I think you have to think of the financial side of things, especially when we don't get the mechanical fees. Nobody's buying records or CDs anymore, so we have to think about that.
Although I did a record in 2016. I recorded it, and I only put it out physically, only physically. No, not digitally, and I actually I doubled the price on it.
Did you?
Yeah, because I said this is, and I
That's ballsy, but I love it, and it's in its place to do that. Yeah.
I think in fact, I got press because I was the first person to number records in a limited edition, hand number, because my mother was an artist. I was used to her doing prints, so I hand numbered them, and I also designed the cover myself.
Yeah.
So I looked at it as like that this was an audio print.
I love it.
Similar to like a print.
Yeah,
it was an audio print, and it was vintage mics the whole way, and all the instruments were vintage instruments.
What year was this? Something is ringing a bell in my head. I remember some media talk about that project. What year was that?
I think they in 2016. It was, around there.
I think.
Then I when I sold all those, then in 2018 I had a vinyl made. Of it also, but then that was at the end of 2018, and then I sold, like, I had a few gigs then because I started a band around that. And sold 75, and then the pandemic came. But I was selling them for 400 kroner a piece.
Yeah.
Gatefoot. But I did all quality. It was like lacquer cut instead of metal cut.
I think if we, of course you have to be a good artist, and that you are, good musician, songwriter. But I think if more of us dare to do projects like that, I think not only will it inspire other musicians, but it may inspire the Norwegian music listening public to buy those products, and maybe something can change with the income stream for a lot of musicians.
Well, I think vinyl is, I think there's two reasons that vinyl sells at shows, especially, even though I have the record at several small boutiques.
Yeah.
But it's for two reasons. Either they want a piece of merchandise, but there are people that are really into listening to vinyl. That's why I made it like a lacquer cut. I had to have it done in Germany because there are no lacquer record presses here in Norway or in Scandinavia. And, a gatefold that you could actually sit in, and with all the lyrics. And I brought a copy.
It's a whole experience. Yeah.
I brought a copy for you to have.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I'm going to fire that up today. Yeah. But I guess I think of what Neil Young does for educating people about proper sound. And I love Neil Young. He's my favorite living artist.
Oh, God.
That guy's my hero, my songwriting hero, my music business hero. But what he does I look at my kids, okay? Daughter is 16, son is 14. They don't have a clue that the sound that they hear from a Spotify stream is like talking through a tin can. They don't understand that. But I think if they were shown, okay, listen to this song on Spotify, now listen to it on a CD, now listen to it on vinyl, now listen to the studio master, I think any person, if they have that short education in sound, I think pretty much everybody would choose a different format than Spotify, iTunes, or whatever. So I guess my question is do we as musicians, as artists, are we missing out on, are we not living up to a certain amount of responsibility when it comes to educating the public about our income streams, about how little we get from Spotify and whatnot, as well as informing them about the benefits of listening to our work on a different platform other than online streaming? Is that our fault? If enough of us spoke up, don't you think we could do something, change the way the business is run, influence the public, who would then influence the people at the top of this business, the lawyers with the shirt and tie who decide all of these deals on Spotify? Am I dreaming?
I don't know how much of the responsibility lies with us, as it relies on the fact that technology is a runaway train.
Sure it is, yeah. And that can't be denied.
Yeah. And
but why aren't more musicians doing what you did?
But I think it's the radio. It's NRKs. What they do is that they have relegated music to being the wallpaper behind two people talking about bullshit. You know,
radio is not about the music anymore.
No, and we grew up in a time when you know, and they would. I mean, it was about the music.
Yes.
The closest you get to it on NRK is Knut Deus' Blues Asyl.
Yeah.
That's where he's talking, and you know, and there used to be programs on Norwegian radio and Norwegian TV that was about the music, and that's where it comes down to, when it's about the music. Because now what happens is that in people's lives, music is it's like a background.
It's in the background. Yeah.
It's in the background. It's not like,
it's the carpet we wipe our feet on when we come through the door.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like playing. It's sort of like it becomes like music, even though I mean, on NRK you can hear, they don't even say who it was that just played. They expect you to read the goddamn metadata on the radio.
That is incredibly frustrating.
They don't say, and they'll be playing Dana such and such, and the drummer was Jim Keltner or whatever the heck, you know.
Jim Keltner, yes. I know exactly what you're saying, and that thing to me, radio is supposed to be about the music, and look at me gesticulating and stuff I get angry when I think about how radio is not about music anymore. It's about some cool DJ trying to impress with some crazy program, and the music is in the background. But that is exactly what motivated me to get into radio. If I can plug what I'm doing, I'm switching gigs. I no longer am doing my program for the radio station I was on before. I'm starting my own internet radio station, and I'm going to get it back to the music. It's going to be about the music. It's going to be about people like you coming in and playing live. It's going to be people like, maybe there's a kid that lives on the other side of town who could be the next Ed Sheeran, who could be the next Prince, but he doesn't have a shot. I'm going to give those people the time to profile themselves on my show. And that's what radio used to be about. I can remember we would get 93.1 FM coming out of Cleveland, Ohio. And you would get all kinds of talented R&B, not just vocalists, but musicians. Imagine that, an R&B music persona who could also play an instrument. Yeah, that happened back in those days. Hey. And they would come on the radio and they would get profiled. And it would be hit or miss. Sometimes they would make it, sometimes they wouldn't. But back in those days, you could be a regional hit. You could be, successful in just Cleveland. And there were enough places where you could gig, and you could get enough radio plates where you could live.
Absolutely. So and that's what happened. The world is the music business has developed the same way as the society has. You have the top 1%, and you used to have a really strong middle class of music. That's been hollowed out, and then you have the people who are just like playing for the door, And it's the music business is a complete reflection of how society is today. But
But we can. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
I get so passionate.
Yeah, that's cool.
But we as musicians, I know it is the way it is today, and it's an ugly situation. It's not profitable for musicians, and not only is it not profitable, very often our art simply isn't appreciated. Period. Regardless of how much money we're making or not making. But I also say that we as I'm a musician, but I'm also stepping into the radio thing because I see the problem. And I'm trying to do something about it.
Great.
You see the problem. Well, thanks, man. And I guess I'm tooting my horn, but I just want people to know that there are steps that can be taken. People who all of a sudden don't release a digital version of their music and they do it just on vinyl. They dare to do that. More of us can do those kind of things. And I think we can turn this around. It may not happen tomorrow. Well, may not happen in the next decade.
It's funny because I'm contemplating. I just finished a new record. It's and I haven't released it yet. And I'm thinking.
What's your release date on that?
Oh,
you don't know?
I don't know right now. I'm because I've been my own record company, and now I decided I'm going to shop it. But I do think I'll have enough control over it to be able to say. I have discovered that there are at least 2 streaming platforms that are user-centric. One is called Resonate. I think it's for Iceland? Is it IE or IIS? I think. And then there's a second one. I forget the name of it, but I'm thinking just physical and user-centric. In other words, user-centric is that when it's streamed. It's funny because I was presenting this idea years ago when Spotify was just sort of forming. I was saying, why can't we have a system where like it was with the European record stores? If you go in and you could take the record out and you'd listen to it.
Yeah.
But you make it so that you can listen to it, say 3, 4, maybe 5 times, and that's it. And then you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
But then you own it.
Yeah.
You can listen to it as many times as you want to afterwards. So they've combined that with the fact that the money will then go directly to the artist and all the writers and stuff.
I think CD Baby also has something similar where everything goes straight to the artist who uploads the product.
Yeah.
This is called Resonate.
Resonate.
I think it's resonate.is. I'm going to check that. I'm going to link to that on this episode so people can.
Yeah, and I want if I do go with a record company and I do go with that thing, I want them to just profile because I think everybody should just get off of the Spotify and go on to user centric. There's another one. There's a couple of them that are user centric. They're not making a heck of a lot of money. There aren't that many really big artists. I think Neil Young and all those people should go there because they've been
Well, Neil Young has his own app.
Yeah,
the Neil Young Archives app, where everything is in pretty much masters. Have you heard it?
No.
Oh. Take your cell phone, go on that, but put on headphones, and you're going to be blown away by the sound quality. And he's got his whole catalog and then some on there. He's got tons of unreleased stuff. But see, that's what I'm talking about the artist taking a little responsibility. I'm not saying artists don't take responsibility because we do, but sometimes we get frustrated, but we have to keep our eyes open for these opportunities. Like people like you and myself being our own record company. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is actually relatively easy to do. Now, there's a lot of drawback to that when it comes to promotion and distribution. We have to work quite hard to make that work. But again,
it's time consuming.
Well, it's very
really
time consuming. Yeah.
And I've done it.
Yeah, it is. It's very time consuming, but it's a step towards taking back control.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And I guess what I'm saying is I wish more of us did that. And I get it. It's scary. I get it. You have, you might be a 21-year-old guy. Well, I can tell you, there's a guy, Frederick Wallman is his name. I think he's 22, actually. Sits with an acoustic guitar, plays the most beautiful self-written ballads. He's a hit on Reddit. Millions of viewers on Reddit.
What was his name again?
Frederick Wallman is his name.
Frederick Wallman.
Now, he does have some songs on Spotify. You can I'll send you some links. Beautiful vocalist, great songwriter. he recently got burned by signing a record contract.
Yeah.
He should have hired, and I say this openly because Frederick, I love him. He's like a brother. I'm not talking behind his back, and I've told him this. He should have hired somebody to consult him on how to monetize the influence that he had on Reddit with millions of listeners every time he went live.
Oh, yeah.
Do that instead of signing a record contract. Now, he knows that now. But I say that the reason that he didn't know that before is because there's a lack of cohesiveness in the music environment. We don't talk enough about these pitfalls with each other.
There's also a little dream I've always had is that there's so many of us that actually have that particular dream, and like I said, there's only so many. Not dream, but we have the ability and we have the talents to be able to be our own record companies, be our own promotion thing. But I mentioned this to Claudia and everything, but it's never become a reality. But just make a pool of us and say, okay,
a collective,
a collective. But in other words, you can even like log hours. Okay, I'll put in 8 hours for you, and then you owe 8 hours to me. You know, sort of like a co-op.
Exactly.
You know, and in terms of like dealing, I'm putting out a record now. It's sort of like a record company, but nobody gets paid.
Exactly.
We're just trading hours. And I thought I brought this idea up many years ago when we started this. I said, why don't we make like a whole web-based application where people can actually say, okay, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. You know, I can do graphics, I can do promotion, you know, all that stuff, and you basically trade hours. Well, it turns out that's illegal. That's the barter system. The tax department has a problem. But I you know what I say? You know what I say? Just do it. Just do it. I mean,
says the guy who came to Europe in 1972. You know, why not just do it? And you know, you just got my wheels spinning. There would have to be a way to have that type of a cooperative collective of musicians to help each other out and it not be illegal. There has to be a way around all of... I'm such a great host, having my telephone ringing like that. Sorry, people. There has to be a way to make that work.
Yeah.
Who is the government to say that I, as your buddy, can't do what I'm doing now, for example? What if you had an album that was released yesterday and now you're on my radio program and we're talking about it and I'm helping you to push it out there? How can the government get involved in that?
No, you've got a point there. I mean, where do they draw the line?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
that's a great idea, and there has to be a way to make that a reality. There has to be a way. You got me thinking now.
No, I mean, there's absolutely a way, and the thing is, you need a database of all of the journalists that need to be reached, and all of, and you know, and this is the work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
But of course, every release has a different genre and a different subset of people. You know, there's a lot of work that have to go into that. You know,
but it's that kind of activity that I miss. It's that kind of activity I think that if it were in place, it could change the way things are done.
Oh yeah.
But it takes guts. It's a ballsy move to be your own record company. It's a ballsy move to say no to a record contract if you're 20 years old.
Yeah. I remember I made a really bad move once when I had like...
Just once? Lucky you.
Well, no, I mean, many times. I was really nice. I was, you know, being sort of like thinking that everyone else in the world was as hippie-minded as I was, you know.
Guilty as charged.
You know. But I had a friend of mine's father was a music player. And I told him that I had been offered a publishing contract from Warner Chappell. And he says, "Okay, that's good. You need that at this point in your career. I'll take care of the legal side of it and stuff." And sure enough, so I trusted him, you know.
How long ago was this?
I think this was in 94.
Okay. A little bit different in the music world back then.
Yeah, but what they did was basically they wanted all my pipeline. At that point, I had all of Dance with a Stranger, and I had a City Negro, and I had tons of pipeline.
Yeah.
That was earning me a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that they just wanted the percentages, like shares of that, and I was willing to give it to them in the contract period. And I said, just make sure that when if I leave this contract, that I get my pipeline back. Well, it was written.
That's probably where it stopped.
It was written in such a way that it was a gray area, and so at the end of it, I'm still fighting with them. I need enough money to get a good lawyer to get myself out of it. But they've been sucking percentages off of my pipeline from the early from the I guess the late '80s all the way into.
Oh, that's so disgusting.
And so signing a contract is very often with the suits. It can just
unfortunately, there's a lot of status in that. I'm a signed artist.
All I got was this T-shirt, you know.
But the way they rip people, I remember Prince was getting interviewed by Jay Leno on the Tonight Show back in '99, 2000, and he said, Prince says, yeah, everyone thinks that Mariah Carey has such a great contract. Mariah Carey had recently signed a contract for $40 million with whatever label she was with, $40 million. But Prince says, she's got $40 million, but nothing else. And Jay Leno's like, well, what do you mean nothing else? Prince says, okay, let me break it down to you. I don't have a record contract with anybody. I own everything I do. He says, how many records do you think Beyonce is going to sell this year? She might sell, whatever. Let's say she sells 1 million, right? CDs. How much money would she get from those CDs within a year or 2 or 3 years? And Prince says, yeah, a lot more than $40 million. But she's not going to get any of that because she signed a contract with a $40 million advance.
It's an advance. It's a loan.
He says, if I only sell 100,000 copies, but I own everything, how much money do you think I'm going to make with no contract? A lot more than $40 million.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
you see, it's that wrong presentation of what it means to be successful in the music business. I do everything I can every chance I get. Here I am talking about it now. Every chance I get to talk that down because it's just not the truth of the music business. That's not how you're successful.
No.
You can be if you sign a good contract, and there are good contracts to sign, but
yeah, usually, I mean, the very often a band gets signed, they get an advance, and then the record company then writes off everything that they use.
Everything. The air they breathe costs money.
Yeah. And then at the end of the day, they end up owing the record company money.
More often than not. And it's a sad situation. And a lot of young cats are getting taken advantage of. Now they have these 360 deals where they, if you have a friend who's a graphic designer who makes a cool logo to put on a T-shirt, you don't get that money. The record company gets it. They own everything you do.
And they'll do your booking too, and they get percentage of your live. They get percentage of everything. And I understand how they ended up there because they're not selling records anymore. Yeah. They're dealing with files, with MP3s. They're just it's.
You see, I get engaged on that.
By the way, while we're there, I can also make a little advertisement. I'm part of I'm sitting on the board of a producers organization, a record producers organization, just on the same line as say IFB or Phono, but this is for people who own their own record companies. Okay. It's called Nora, and the web page, if you want to join, is Nora Music, noramusic.no. And this is an organization that
and you're on the board, right?
I'm on the board, yeah. And it's Claudia's on the board as well, as is Trina Rain and
I would love to have Trina on my show.
Yeah, Trina.
Gosh, I just love her.
Yeah, she's a great person. And it's we're basically looking out for the rights of people who are they own their own masters. They might have licensed it to a record company, but they own it. The masters. Yeah. And it's these people that we're taking care of. Phono takes care of Norwegian record companies, people who have several artists. This is people who basically are doing their own. Yeah. Exactly what we were talking about.
That's another organization I need to get into.
Yeah, you should definitely join it. And it's and at the moment, I mean, we've negotiated with NRK because before, if they used a bit of your music behind some sort of nature thing, you wouldn't get paid for it because there was no contract. You were and we have now a contract with NRK for our members. And stuff.
I love it. See, it's those kind of things that need to be done. You guys are the grassroots people. You guys aren't sitting in a coat and a tie in an office planning on how you can squeeze an artist for more money. Sounds like it's an artist for artists type of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like how Gromart takes care of the performing artist. Yeah, we are the master owning artist organization. Well, and I'm sure it's a young organization, but it's we've.
How long has it been up and running?
Since 2017, I guess.
Oh wow, that new.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
who's the brains behind that? Who started this?
This is interesting. The brains behind it is the guy who used to be the head of the board of IFBI. And he
so he left the dark side.
It's true. He made a lot of the rules that really squeezed a lot of people that really like, and in his older years, he's in his 70s. He decided that he wanted to be on the side of Luke Skywalker.
I love it.
And he probably understands the music business better than anybody in Norway. His name is Salmon Fisvik. A lot of people, he's unpopular with a lot of people because he wins most of his battles. He does. Yeah. And that's because of his incredible ability to understand the law. Yeah. And
is he a lawyer by trade?
No.
Okay.
He's a fiddle player by trade.
I love it.
No. But no. He went into the business. He left. Yeah. He was in a band early, but he was in. When I got to Norway, he was running a record company called Mai, which was it was him and Talia Engen. I think they had a company called Mai, and it was all these politically active Marxist-Leninists. But he totally became a total capitalist after that. Yeah. And then now he's sort of like, in his older years, he's sort of like he's in between. But he's what should I say? He's a real character, but an incredible intellect. Yeah. And can express his arguments clearly. And really get to the heart of matters. And I've been on the other side of bargaining with him, and he just steamroll.
Yeah, one of those guys. Yeah.
I mean, you can't win.
So he's the kind of guy we want on our side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you a couple of things. We're coming up on 2 hours here. You said an hour. Yeah, an hour.
To me, the time's just going. It's fun.
But I do want to ask you one thing. How did you come to meet Jonas Fjelltarje? How did you come to meet him and start writing with him? Tell me that story if you would, please.
I'm trying to remember exactly. I think it was in 1980. Oh, it had to be like 84, 85. I, with my band, I recorded a song for Amnesty International, and with little Steven in New York, and that's a whole story in itself, or how I met him. But and we put together an album of artists, so we could sell the record for Amnesty International, so they could make the money from it, and so when we after the record was pressed and stuff, and Talia had or Jonas Fiel had a song on it. I called him up and asked him if he wanted to go down to a record store and we could stand outside and like sell it and sign it. And,
cool.
So we drove down and stuff. I think it was the Sandefjord. I remember, or Tunsberg. Yeah. And then he called me up after we had a good time. He called me up after that and invited me to a hat party.
A hat party.
Yeah, as a party where everybody wore different hats.
Okay.
And it was fun. We were dancing and stuff. And it's like I had already done. Hang on, this had to be the end of the '80s. And then he just invited me over to his house, and we did some writing together. And it's funny because I was playing in a bluegrass band there, and he was really into Don Williams at the time, which was country and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the one song that he wrote, I wrote the lyrics to. It's never been. I think I ought to record it. It's a good song. It's called "In the Way of Love," which was double meaning, like the ways of love, and also standing in the way.
Yeah.
It's and he wanted it to be a straight country thing, and he wasn't that much of a fan of bluegrass at the time. And then I recorded it with a bluegrass beat with mandolin stuff in it.
So he wasn't a bluegrass fan at that time. And here he is these days with Chatham County Line, which is about as bluegrass as you can tell.
I know. So I kind of like, I kind of tease him a bit sometimes, about that. No, he was a little bit, but he was negative to that demo. And then all of a sudden, but it grew on him.
Yeah.
And, one of the things I really regret, really regret in my career, and that is once he called me up, and he used to have, before he had this, I think it was Tres Amigos or with him and Linny and Kinder Today. So before that happened, he called me up and he asked if Claudia, me, and him should do a trio. And like an idiot, I said, I don't know, because I was working with Gone at Last, and I should have just said, yes. I really regret that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
we all have those moments.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong decision.
Yeah, but okay, that's the way it is. No, but he's been really.
He is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. Yeah. I can't believe how kind he was to me. You're, I don't want to say it's different for you, but you are known. You had a name, and he knew who you were. And here I am. I'm just a guy. Well, let me just tell the story.
We're all just guys.
Let me tell the story. Now, this is when we were living up north. We were living in Nordstrom's. This was in 2013, maybe. But I got a gig here in Drummond at Union Sena here in Drummond. So there's a group of guys that live here in Drummond, and a couple of them in Oslo. So I came down and we were rehearsing and stuff, and then the show came along. And I don't know if you know Hans Cato Christensen.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, in Remmer Brothers band vocalist and sometimes drummer, sometimes background vocalist with Jonas Fjeld. Yeah. Anyway, Cato was in the audience when we performed, and I've known Cato for years, since writing with the. I always tease Cato. I tell him he's the second best voice in Norway, and then he'll always say, "Well, who's the first?" And I'll just me. We've been doing that for years. No, but so Cato was in the audience, and it's a matter of timing because it was all new material that I presented that day, and then Cato said he started thinking, Tadia is looking for somebody to rewrite a song that he had in Norwegian. He wanted it to be rewritten into English. So Kato called me and asked if I would take a call from Jonas Fjeld, from Tarja, to hear, to discuss writing this song. I'm like, what am I going to say? No, of course I'd love to hear from Jonas Fjeld. So Jonas Fjeld, Tarja called me and introduced himself and presented the song for me. He had written a song for Nelson Mandela, or about Nelson Mandela, called Ubuntu. And he wanted that rewritten into English. And then afterwards, he wanted coaching on the singing, if he's going to sing it in English. So to get to write for that guy who, at that time, it was like, oh my God, Jonas Fjeld, he's like the Neil Young of Norway. Now I know him as Tarja, who's this sweet guy who's just he's just a guy just like us. But at that time, and I remember I came down here to Drammen and I met Kato, and then we drove up to Tarja's house, and I'm all, oh my God. But right away, there's just something about that guy. He puts out an aura of calm.
That's why he's so successful. An
aura of acceptance. And he is, of course, he has an ego. We all have an ego, but he does not have an overwhelming ego that a long-time star would have. He's just another guy.
He's a guy.
And to sit there and spend that day with him and to write that song, and he gave me the thumbs up, and we're in his studio working on it and stuff. That is one of my best musical moments in my life. And then it was a couple years after that that I suggested that he get with those gospel singers in New York for his Romulus concert. So that's my experience with him. And he asked me to here's another cool thing. This is probably an everyday thing for you who know all these people. But Tarja asked me to rewrite another song of his, Hydra. And there's a part where Ole Paus does a spoken word thing in that song. So Tarja called me up, and the first thing I said was, well, is Ole Paus okay with me rewriting his lyrics? Oh yeah, I talked to him and he says it's fine. It's like, to get the thumbs up from those kind of people to do songwriting it's a reaffirmation that you're on the right path. You know what I mean? That's probably old hat to you, but for me it was.
No. I still get that. I still.
Well, but it was the realization that these are just regular people. They're good people. Of course, they're extremely talented, but they're just like you and I and anybody else out there. And to be accepted into that, little sub-society.
Well, obviously, your work was of a caliber that also put you in good company.
It's all the work that I did with the Remme Brothers band. I wrote their 2 first albums, and for them to, I'll send it to you. And for cats like Jonas Fjeld and Ole Paus to say this is something that we can use. That was just,
I had the opposite with Ole Paus. I did my, that song that Sissel sang, which was Innerste Själen.
Yes.
I was asked to do a tolkning of it, which I wrote, and it actually it's on that. You'll hear it's the first song on that album I gave you.
Okay,
great. Well, first of all, I found, everybody attributes that song to Ole Paus.
Now, why is...
Because,
because he wrote the original, yeah.
Well, but he didn't write the original. Turns out that it was, the music was written by a Norwegian country guy. Hang on, I almost have to look at it. He's dead now. And a Swedish guy, and it was a song to Sweden. And Warner Chappell took it and said, because they were... that they basically ripped the song away from them through whatever it doesn't matter. But I wrote a lyric based on his lyrics, and then when I was done with it, I sent it to Ula, and he didn't like it.
Oh,
he didn't like it at all. He was almost angry, and I said,
almost angry.
Yeah, and because
it's a lot of dislike.
I turned it to. Well, no, I don't know what, but he when it comes to artistic things, it has nothing to do on the personal level.
Yeah, of course.
He wasn't angry at me.
No,
but it's because he didn't understand. I was when I changed it, and he said interstitial, and I was thinking in terms of the amount of of syllables to be able to interstitial, and I turned it deep is the river, and I was referring to basically Langston Hughes's poetry about the river that stretches out into the universe.
Yeah, the river of the soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's what I was. And deep is the river, and that's what I'm referring to the whole way, and tying that between nature and.
So Ole Paus thought that was coming too far away.
Well, he didn't know who Langston Hughes was, and he didn't understand any of those metaphoric because of his lack of understanding of English metaphor.
Yeah, he
didn't understand. But on the other hand, Paul Brady, who is an incredible songwriter, he's written like Nick of Time he writes for Bonnie Raitt. He was written for I don't know, tons of people, but he's also a great songwriter on his own, an Irish guy, and he's one of the guys who I respect. He's one of my heroes, and he loved it.
Yeah,
he said, "What a beautiful set of lyrics," and I've got tons of English-speaking people that said this really speaks to me.
Yeah,
and so it was an interesting thing because I really respect Ole Paus.
Sure. But that's a testament to how difficult it can be to translate things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't believe in, when I redid Hydra, and believe me, I was very conscious of here's an example. Ole Paus didn't really understand who Langston Hughes was, and he didn't understand your way of interpreting that song. Far be it for me to tell Ole Paus what he should do, but maybe he should have just studied up on Langston Hughes for a second, because when I had to redo Hydra, and Tadia told me that the spoken word part that Ole Paus does is in reference to Leonard Cohen's time in Greece on the island of Hydra. And sorry, people, but I'm not very knowledgeable about Leonard Cohen's music. I know that's almost sacrilege to say. That's almost blasphemy. But I don't know much. I don't know much about his music. But in order to get the essence of what the original song was about, I had to study up on that. I probably used about 3 days of just digging into the life of Leonard Cohen and what he did on Greece and how he explained. After getting all that together, okay, now I'm ready to write the song. And although it wasn't a direct translation, it still stayed in the same thread. But again, that's the difficult. I guess what I'm saying is when a song is translated from one language to the next, you can almost expect it to take a certain distance from the original meaning. Am I right? Yeah. At the same time as you're keeping the essence, but it's going to step away from it to a certain degree.
Yeah. Also, you have to deal with rhyme.
Exactly.
And you have to deal. You
syntax and rhyme and how many syllables and.
It's got to be singable in the same way. It's a lot to take into account. And where on the other hand, I had a similar thing where Olga Alexanderson asked me to do like an interpretation of a song, and I just took the essence of it and I turned it completely, and he loved it.
Yeah.
And he was just, oh yeah, this is really good. Even though it changed quite a bit of I think his was Sula Edain, like sun, rain, and I turned it into faithful as the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I guess I want to ask: would you? This may be a bad question because it's all songwriting. But do you find that you prefer writing for yourself over writing a song for someone else? Or does it not matter to you? Is it the same experience for you?
Strangely enough, it's easier for me writing for somebody else.
Is it really?
Yeah. I don't know why. Writing for myself, I'm so damn critical. And like I'll even be where because it's not even done until after I've recorded. I'll even go in and change the lyrics and stuff.
Really? Yeah.
And like small little things.
On recording day, on the mic. Oh, hold on a second, guys. Let me.
But the guy who I've been working with recently, who is, I think, the most humble human being I've ever met, and probably the easiest to write for, just like sort of just flows, and that's Adam Douglas. It's like
Adam Douglas.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a favor of you because I've reached out to Adam Douglas. My daughter got to meet him. My daughter went to an episode of Beat for Beat, one of the last episodes with Ivar Dyrhaug, and she got to meet Adam Douglas. And since then, I've reached out to him. Of course, I don't expect him to know who the heck I am, but I've reached out to him a couple of times, asking him to be on my show, and I've never gotten a response. I don't blame him for that. He probably gets crazy messages from whoever, but tip him off that this is a good place to come, if you would, please.
Well, Adam's he's the.
I love that guy's music. What a voice! What a soulful voice.
Yeah. He's. But as in terms of writing with somebody, it
comes easy when it's with him.
Yeah. It really does, and that's because I know he understands. Like that when I'm doing something that's really like. Crafty, lyric wise, I know he's getting it. Could
that be a cultural thing, American background?
Absolutely. Because here's the thing. Here's the problem. Being here in Norway and finally coming to a point where you feel like, okay, I'm mastering this.
Yeah.
And you're doing it in a language that you're trying to write world class, and you are writing world class. And when you feel like this is really world class, and you don't get that like in Norway, all they're getting is the goddamn chorus.
Yeah.
Is
that frustrating at times?
Like we could be in Mongolia, you know what I'm saying? It's like, because when Norwegians listen to English music, they listen with another set of ears.
Yes.
Whereas if they're listening to Norwegian, they're listening to Bjørn Eidsvåg, they're listening to if Jonas Fjell singing Norwegian.
It's a different lyrical experience. They're taking it in and feeling that more.
They hear the turn of phrase. Yes. They're getting moved by it. It's going into their heart and stuff. I want to move hearts.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. That's our job.
Do you remember, and I don't know if they're still active, forgive me, but around 2005-06, Jim Stark. Do you remember them?
Yeah, sure.
That one album, the one that made it big, I can't remember the name of it, but they had all those beautiful songs, very well produced. To me, it gave me a 70s vibe. But when I listened to the lyrics, it's almost amateurish. Okay. There was so little thought behind the lyrics. But to the Norwegian public, it didn't matter. That right there told me that they really, it didn't affect the way I write because I still want to write that world-class lyric, but that album was proof. We're talking they had several number one songs here in Norway and Sweden. But that album told me that Norwegians don't really care about the lyrics.
It's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't care. It's that they accept that the English language
better said,
is allowed to be in their world, but they listen with a completely different consciousness.
Yeah.
They do. They're not really looking to be moved by lyrics, and generally in speaking, the general public doesn't even hear lyrics even to Norwegian songs until the eighth listening or whatever. Yeah. And some people hear it immediately. That's what they just. When I listen, I'm listening to lyrics. Yeah. That's me.
That's because we do it. Yeah.
But I mean, even in Norwegian, I'm listening. Yeah. I want to hear the story.
Yeah.
Because if you take it all down to the real primitive thing, human beings are storytellers.
Yeah.
We are. We sit around the fire and we tell our stories. And you and I are sitting here, we're telling stories. Mm-hmm. And that's perhaps the most beautiful thing that the humans do.
Well, like you said, we want to move hearts. Mm. We say things in our storytelling, whether it's songwriting or doing a radio episode like this. We say these things to affect people. We want to move hearts. Mm. We want to influence people.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's a powerful thing, too. And it needs to be handled with care. I never judge another songwriter. I always just hope that what they wrote, they meant it.
Yeah. That takes us to a whole nother thing. There are what happens now, have you ever noticed there's 15 names on a song now?
Oh,
You know, I mean, it's like, it's not like they sat down and like that somebody had a story to tell. What they do is they put together a song. In other words, it's Norwegian snekkere. What would you say? They
crafted it like a factory line.
Yeah, they craft the song.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they're crafting it thinking about how many albums they can sell. And
it's completely soulless. It's a product for sale. It's not an expression of anything.
Yeah.
It's a product for sale.
It's a product for sale.
Completely cold, no essence, no soul.
And a lot of pop music, in Norwegian they have a word for cardboard that's pop.
Yeah.
I call it pop.
Pop music. I love it.
It's,
Can I use that one?
Yeah, yeah.
You haven't patented that, have
music.
you?
No. That's the more people that start saying it, the better, because it really kind of, in a way, music, and lyrics. Music is a marriage between music. The music, a song is it's a marriage between the words and the lyrics. You know, and their ability both together to move people and stuff. But music has a function in many different ways. I mean, it could be telling a story and trying to influence people, or raise their consciousness, or to commune with people in a certain way, or hit a universal nerve of some sort. But 90% of pop music is what I would call mating music.
Mating music.
Mating music.
Yeah,
it's music designed either about the mating process, about like, hey, you're going out on the town, we're going on, and like, or it's a breakup song, or it's how much I love you, or which is okay, we need that because obviously, but especially dance music, dance in itself. Even in a primitive sense, it's like people dance and
they're trying to impress the opposite sex.
Yes,
are they not?
It's mating from an anthropological point of view, and the music involved in it is part of that process. Yeah. And the beat involved in it, and it's okay. Sure, that's what we are.
It's life. That's a physiological fact.
Yeah. But music also can go.
Yeah.
It can hit all the chakras.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to always hit in the groin,
Well, yeah, there's the heart and the mind and the body. Mind, body, spirit, it's that triumvirate. And I think, and again, I'll never judge another lyricist, but I want the lyricists, I hope that they mean what they write. And I hope that if it is something that just goes for the groin, I hope that was their intention after a thought out process. But I think a lot of lyricists possibly, if they, when you have, I hesitate to call it a lyricist when you're part of a group of 10 people who wrote a song. But again, I question where is the heart and soul of that lyrical effort.
Yeah, I agree with it. Unless they're all really incredibly connected, which they
rarely are.
No, and there's songcrafters, and it's good to understand how to craft a song. But after that, if you want to take it to the next level, you've got to inject it with soul and
feelings,
heart.
Emotion.
So
the songs are crafted way too often these days, crafted with the intention of making money rather than with the intention of, as you say, moving hearts. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let me tell you now, this is 2 hours and 13 minutes. As we wind this up, 10 minutes, I want to ask you to do two things for me. Okay.
25 push-ups.
35. No, I ask every guest to do these two things for me. Okay. The first thing I'd like to ask of you, I'm going to say 3 words and I want you to finish the sentence. Just one succinct sentence, okay? You ready?
Yeah.
Jeff Wasserman is...
God, a good human.
A good human. I believe that. And I'll tell you why. There's a couple reasons why I believe that with no question. First, because Martin Hagfors said you were. He's the one that told me to get in touch with you and have you come on. And anybody who's a friend and brother of Martin is a friend and brother of mine. Period.
I should have put, hopefully, a good human, because that's what I strive to be. I really do.
And I can tell that you do. You know, I'm a fairly good judge of character. That's why I love doing this podcast and radio show. I like talking to people who inspire me and motivate me, and you've done both of those things. And then what I've learned through conversing with you is that you give off a good vibe.
Thank you.
And not everybody does. Sorry, not everybody does, but you do. Oh, you have an inherent goodness in you.
Oh, thank you.
So hats off to you for that. Somebody raised you right.
I had a good. Yeah, I guess my mother was. She was a good soul.
Good. Well, it bled down into you. So, the second thing I like to ask of you, like I say, I invite people on here who inspire me, who motivate me, people who can teach me something. So my show is quite selfish in that I'm first thinking of what am I going to get out of it. But peripherally, I hope that my viewers and my listeners get something along those lines of motivation, inspiration, something they can learn from. Is there something you can say, a few sentences, a paragraph, if you will, something you can say that my listeners can carry with them over the next couple of days to keep them going? You know, as you know, you and I, we're living well, but life has its challenges, and there's people out there who have more challenges than you and I have. Tell them something, some sort of advice. I almost said grandfatherly. You're uncle age. What does Uncle Jeff say to people out there? Something that they can carry with them to help them along their path through life.
Well, depending on where you are in life. One thing to understand is that there are two elements in life that are constant, and one is change. So no matter where you are, if you're way, way down in the depths at the bottom, there's this value in that because you know how deep it can go.
Yeah.
But you must also understand that change is constant.
Yeah.
Things do change, even though they change sometimes in a very quick way, and sometimes it'll take a year or so, or years, but things change, and that your experience wherever you are is something that's going to that just deepens the soul. And that also, I mean, you cannot appreciate good times unless you've experienced bad times.
Ain't it the truth?
You know. And then the other thing that's a component in life that most people don't even realize is that coincidence it's always there. It's one of the main factors of living, along with change. In other words, if you coincidence happens, but you have to be out there. You have to go out and meet people and communicate with people in order for coincidence to appear at your door.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I found is that those things when I'm out meeting people, and it could be it could just be meeting a farmer or something like that. But you know, like for example, it gives you an idea for a song. You know,
sure.
But or for let's say you're writing a song and then somebody calls on the phone and they say something and say, "Hold it, I got to write that down."
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, coincidence happens all the time, and it's one of the main components of life.
Well, dialogue opens the door for those coincidences.
Yeah.
Talking with people, just like you said. Yeah, dialogue. Yeah.
Dialogue, but just even meeting a person that could change your whole life.
Yeah.
You know, you have no idea when I met that woman in Copenhagen, that girl.
Yeah.
It changed my whole life. It's because of her. Here you go. I met her. Something happened, and I ended up in Norway.
Yeah.
As writing lyrics. I mean, or being a songwriter. If I hadn't met her, or I walked past her, or went out and didn't meet her, that would not have happened.
That applies to me almost directly. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't met Snoopy through another Norwegian who was living in Chicago.
Mm.
And I never would have been, I didn't write music when I was a cop in Chicago. That happened here after I met her.
Yeah. So it's those coincidences that can have life-changing effects. Sometimes
Absolutely.
I think what would happen if I had just ended up in the States, what would my career be like? I mean, I can't even think like that. But it's what happened. You've got to go where your star shines.
I like that. Go where your star shines. Talk about hearing a line from somebody and putting it to a song. That's a good song right there. Go where your light shines.
We can write it together.
Hey, I'm open. I'm cool. Open for it.
Me too.
Yeah. Listen, Jeff, it's almost surreal that I've sat here and spoken with you for the last 2.5 hours after you being someone who, you always have this hope. Oh, I'd love to meet that guy. I love Neil Young's music. I'd love to meet him. Well, there was a time where it was, I love what this Jeff Wasserman guy is doing. I'd love to meet him.
Ah.
And I remember what a kick it was when we hooked up on Facebook. I found you. I'm like, oh my God, there's that guy. So I sent you a friend request. Yeah. And I think you messaged me something about, you were wondering who that guy is in that picture with the big smile or something. Yeah. But, you never know how things will develop. Here we are. We've been sitting and talking. And
feels like 10 minutes.
You never would have known that this, coincidences, tillfälligheter, as they call it in
There you
Norway.
go.
But I think that you have had an amazing career so far. I'm glad you're not retired yet. Keep going.
I have no plans to retire.
Keep going. I think that everybody listening to this or watching it on YouTube has gotten something out of this. At the least, they've gotten their curiosity satisfied. Because I think there's a lot of people like me who see an artist or a performer that they admire, and they always wish they could find out something about them. I think you've revealed a lot about yourself, your openness, your willingness for dialogue, and having your eye open for opportunity. You've had quite the storied life since you've come here to Norway. So there's a lot of entertainment value in that.
The book I could write, you've just heard.
I can only imagine.
The tip of the iceberg.
I can only imagine. Anything you want to promote? Anything you want to blatantly plug while you're here before we sign off?
Well, I want to promote. I guess that
you've got the album coming up, but you don't know when.
No, well, I think in November digitally it's going to be released, and I already know the name of it, and it's the name of my band that I formed around the last album that I made, which actually Tay is on it. Jonas Fjell is on it, and Claudia is on it. All my friends, Knut, today, I had all my friends on it, and
is Henning Kvietnes?
I've written with Henning before he went over to Norwegian, but he's not on this one. I have a couple songs I've written with him, they're totally unreleased. But I put together a band with Marius Graf, and Anna-Marit Bergheim, who's from Katzenjammer, and my musical mentor from the States, who's it's a multi-generational band. Mm. The youngest guy is 26, the oldest guy is 74.
How cool is that?
And there's 6 people in the band, so there's everything in between.
That's a lot of musical influences all packed into one punch. Yeah, and I love it.
It's 100%. It's all multi-instrumentalists, so we all have like 18 on stage. Is like 18 instruments, we made an album now, and the name of the band is Jeffrey's Reverie. Norwegians have a hard time saying reverie. It was actually, I should have changed the name, but reverie means daydream. And it's used both in French and in English. Reverie.
Jeffrey's Reverie.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for cutting certain words out. That's why my artist name, whether I'm doing music or stand-up or my show, I just stop it at John Allen. because when I write Reese, they'll pronounce it Resa. Jon Allan Resa.
Yeah.
So I just dropped the Reese. John Allen.
Yeah. I've often thought.
Reverie.
Yeah, but I thought for me, it's nice to say it, or reverie.
Yeah, sure.
But at any rate, and
they'll learn it as it gets popular and people start loving the upcoming album. They'll get used to saying it. Jeffrey's Reverie.
We hope so. And the album's going to be called We Shall Dance Again.
We Shall Dance Again. Sounds like an album of promise.
Yeah, well, actually,
uplifting.
I wrote it during the pandemic. You know.
So is there that thread of?
Well, the song itself ended up being something about. It started out with that title, but it ended up being about how now coming of age. Like the chorus is, "Old sailors know the winds, young bloods could never know." You know, and then I put in some Cheyenne language, which is Inishwa Vita Kini, which means we shall live again.
Now, where did the Cheyenne language come from?
I don't know.
It's admiration for the.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I did a bunch of studying of the North American Indian.
Okay.
You know, so it's one of those things that I always loved the way that sounded and what it meant, and then and it's about a trip. It's basically in a metaphorical trip from when I left America and meeting people of different wisdom and learning the ropes of life.
Yeah.
You know, from older people.
Yeah.
And now I'm older myself.
Do you feel old?
No. I've been lucky because I've had that house to keep me in shape.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I asked.
It's my training studio.
I asked. Mine's out in the garage. I'll show you on the way out. No, but I asked because I think it's sad that there's some people who aren't even close to being old, but they feel old. Mm. I'm 53, and there's people younger than me who talk about how old they are. People in their 30s and they think they're old. Come on, people.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, but it's every stage of. I remember when I was going to hit 30, I was freaking out.
Well,
you know,
it's all relative, I guess, because I can remember when my parents turned 30, and I'm like, oh my God, they're so old. And then again, when they turned 40, oh my God, any day now they're going to be gone. Yeah. So it's all relative, I guess.
I think it's
creativity keeps us young. Doesn't it?
I think so, and it's really important to keep it, as Martin Hogforth has shown us, the child in your in yourself, and I think I've been also pretty decent at doing that. I can relate to. Yeah. It's funny, the 26-year-old in our band. I had a long drive with him over the mountains, just him and I and the equipment, over to Bergen, and I felt like I was talking to an old pal.
Yeah.
You know, because he's extreme. For 26, he's at the same time.
Life experience.
Yeah, but just on so many levels. And I was talking to a colleague, you know, it's just like you and I speaking, you know. And at the same time, I also understood that he also that there was a difference in terms of experience, because he asked me about some things, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and then I said, I'm a little bit older than him. I have more experience, but just on a basically human level. Yeah. We were like equals.
But I'm sure in his mind he was at least a little bit starstruck.
No.
You're Jeff Wasserman.
No.
Had this guy played with any other well-known Norwegian artists before that?
No.
Well, then he was at least a little starstruck.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Maybe not. But no, but we've gotten to know each other pretty well. So just on a purely human level.
We have the common love of music, you know?
And just of life. And we just had some the 8 hours went like our 2 hours went, 2.5 hours went like that. It was like all of a sudden we were there, you know?
Yeah. I just love dialogue. And when you have a good dialogue, a good conversation, and you're sharing ideas, you know, and you're getting a read on the other person, there's no time involved. You know, 2 hours and 28 minutes. You know? I thought it was 5 minutes, you know? I had one of the coolest opportunities to really have a conversation with a legend, Elliot Mazer.
Yeah, Elliot. I interviewed him. I was when he was here.
Okay. You know why he was here? He was here to record with Øystein Remme and the album we were doing. So I got to work with. It's a long story.
Actually,
the recording session didn't. I don't know what you've heard, but the recording session did not go well. There's a clash between Elliot and Lars Voldstall. I'll tell you off mic. It's an interesting story. Yeah. Let's say that the session with Lars Voldstall got cut short, very short. Everybody else was going to continue recording, and Elliot needed to get back to the hotel here in Drummond. So I volunteered, and I got to sit for, it was a cold winter night. It took us maybe 2 hours to get back from Lars' studio out there in Speedeberg. 2 hours, 2.5 hours in a car with Elliot Mazer talking about music, talking about songwriting. I will never forget that. And you talk about coincidence, you talk about chance, you talk about having your eye open for these kind of experiences. There's so many things that if it hadn't lined up, I never would have been involved with that project.
I also got, strange you met him as well, because they called me from, I think it was Østfjelsk Kompetensmusik.
No, from Gay 60 here at Union.
What's her name? Christine.
Yeah, her and Sadi Amici and Øystein, they run Gay 60.
Well, they asked me if I would interview him in Oslo at the there was a.
Well, see, and you talk about coincidence. I remember that he had to make an interview somewhere in Oslo. I had no idea that was with you. Yeah.
And I got a lot of the background information from one of his friends in New York.
Okay.
The guy who started, he used to work at CBS, and I mean, he was like a music mogul. Now he runs his own little, small little company. A guy named John Berger, and so he gave me all the good background information, questions to ask. Because I mean, I knew everything that he'd done with Neil Young and with Crosby, Stills and Nash. I knew all that, but I had other things to ask him about because I talked to John.
Right.
And then Elliot gave me his whole. I have still all 4 pages. He ripped it out of his entire repertoire of what he produced.
I love it. Yeah. That is so cool.
But he died.
Yes, he did. Yeah. I'm going to tell you a lot of things off the mic because I want to protect people's privacy, but it's quite an interesting story that I have along that. But it all started because Øystein and I just dared to send the album that we had written to Elliot. And there's a guy here in Norway who had a close relationship with Elliot, a guy named Geir Miranda. So between us sending that album to Elliot and Geir Miranda putting in a good word for us, we actually got him here for those sessions.
Okay.
Again, the session with Lars Voldstall, I'll tell you the story about that, but it got cut short. But we ended up going to is it Propeller Studios?
Propeller, yeah.
Ended up going there, and we got some beautiful material down, which is going to come on Øystein's next country album that he's putting out, and those songs were produced by Elliot. That will be my life's satisfaction to release those songs that were produced by Elliot.
And talking about like getting close to your idols.
Oh, good Lord!
I got a call once in '94.
We were supposed to stop an hour and a half ago, but here we go. We're still going, man.
I got a call from. I played in. I know a bunch of people in the Woodstock area, and Cindy Cashdollar, who played with Gone at Last on our 2 tours in the United States.
Excuse that sound, everybody. I'm filling up my
He's
water.
taking a leak.
Taking a leak. Coming home with John Allen. That includes bathroom breaks.
No. Cindy recommended me to, because the band was going to tour in Norway. And
Rick Denko?
It was
Jonas Fjeld?
Yeah, but even before.
Even before that, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So Joe Forno, their manager, called me up and asked if I could be their tour manager.
Yeah, cool.
So I said, okay. I did. I became the drummer. I said, and then he said, well, your band. I said, can our band open for them? And we did. We opened in Norway, but the rest of then I went off with them.
Yeah.
And so that's I spent, I don't know, 3 weeks with all of them. But I got to know Levon Helm quite well.
Oh, wow.
Because we sat on planes, and he was telling me long stories.
To have a conversation with that guy.
But I had met him once before.
Had you?
Yeah, I met him so he recognized me. He goes, "Oh yeah, you're Cindy's friend." I said, because I met him in Woodstock, because I remember walking to the first time I met him in the back of his bus in Woodstock with Billy Preston sitting next to him. And I went, "Oh my God!" Like, can you imagine sitting there like, "Oh my God!" Like, but I was introduced to him, but he remembered it, and I continued to send. So they were going to do a record. So they asked me I said, can I send you songs? And he did. I did. And actually one of them was accepted before they went on tour. So he knew about this one song. So he remembered the song. It was accepted. And then they switched record companies and producers. And because it was the producer that said, I want this on the song, on it. And I worked with him to make it fit.
Yeah.
And then when they switched producers, that song went out. But Levon remembered the song still.
Wow, now that is cool.
And he remembered me, and so I spent a lot of time with him, and I spent with Rick as well. I wrote a song with Rick. It's never been released. Never been released yet. Huh. It's a good song.
What a great bunch of guys that get the opportunity to hang out with and talk with.
And then Garth Hudson was the guy who he was the guy who showed up to every sound check.
Yeah.
The other guys were just like, they were like a bunch of.
I hear a lot of people say he was the heartbeat of that band. He was the one that was kind of always there.
He was the one that was most musically interested.
Yeah.
Musically curious.
Yeah.
I used to set him up with before every gig with a set of speakers in a separate room so he could sit there just to get his mind into music.
Yeah.
And he would transcribe polkas and fiddle tunes.
Yes.
And then at the end of the tour, he gave me all the transcriptions.
Wow.
And so actually on the first album that I did when I had to become my own artist, I had to become my own artist because there were no royalties. But I asked him if with Canute today, I started this band, and then I had Garth.
Yeah.
On organ.
Yes.
And saxophone.
Now that is cool.
Yeah. And so, and all of them said yeah. And
that's right. He was a saxophonist as well.
He played piano beautifully.
Yeah.
And when everyone hears the song "The Weight," where the piano's going down, that's him on piano.
Yep.
It just lays this. But and I had hours of him just improvising.
That guy was great on the keys, man. Oh.
He's pretty old now. He's still alive. His wife just died.
Is he doing anything?
No. That's a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
He had bad management. He had his wife as his manager. I don't want to say anything bad about Maud, but she was not a manager. And when you listen to, I have like hours of his improvisations.
Wow.
Because he in
that
his
is gold.
Yeah. It was just done on Zooms, it was like before concerts and stuff. He would just get up and play because he toured with us for in 2010.
Boy, that would be something to listen to.
And it struck me immediately, this guy should be on ECM records. He's almost like a Keith Jarrett type.
Yeah.
He has like 150 years of American jazz piano in his hands. Everything from like Professor Longhair to Art Tatum to, he had so much in his hands.
Yeah.
And it just flowed.
Let me ask you this, kind of a sidestep, but this is inspired by what we're talking about. Best keyboardist in Norway today. Let's see if you and I think similar. I'm pretty sure you know who I'm thinking of, even if you may not name him as the best. I'm pretty sure you know who this guy is.
Well, David Waldemar. I'm thinking about him. I'm thinking about...
Name three.
Bygge.
Bygge, yeah. That's not who I was thinking of, but of course he deserved to be named.
Oh, let me think. There's so many. I mean, there's Lasse Haflager.
Thank you, Brother Lasse. That's what I'm thinking of. I love that guy.
Yeah. Oh, Lasse he's a genius.
Lasse is a genius. When the Remy Brothers band started out, they were already good. When Lasse joined for their second album, that album made Rock Album of the Year in Sweden. With Lasse. Yeah,
he recorded with my band Gun at Last, and he's.
I've worked a lot with him.
Lasse is.
Lasse is the go-to guy if you want a producer who's going to take their time. Lasse is not known for working quickly.
No.
I'll go to Lasse for a session because he's pulled me in a lot to write for different artists that come through. I'll go to Lasse. We agree that we're gonna start at 1500, for example. I'll get there at 1500, and it's 18, 19, maybe 8 p.m., 2000 before we get started. Because Lasse will talk about his plans. Lasse will play you demos that have been on. And a lot of people get frustrated with that, would get frustrated with that. But for me, every time I talk to Lasse, it's, I teased you about being, like musicology session. It's musicology 101 with Lasse. Every time I talk to him, we talk about so many aspects of music, and I just sit there and take it in, knowing that this is a legend who is speaking, and I just need to be quiet and listen. That's why I love that guy, because he'll share his, I'll tell you this, the drum sound on any of my solo songs is because of Lasse teaching me how to EQ drums.
Oh, Lasse has,
little things like that.
He has incredible knowledge.
Don't you love that guy?
Yeah, he's. We were working a lot together. We really were, but things were taking way too long.
Yeah, I say it in joking, but I can see.
But it's all quality.
When it's done, it is the perfect.
It's great.
It's a work of art.
Yeah, it is.
But to get it done, it takes a little while.
But just you put him on any keyboard, just throw him on a stage.
You know what I love about Lasse is, for me, he's my favorite keyboardist in Norway. But you know what else? That guy is a darn good guitarist as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking whether it's rhythm or lead. That guy, well, music is in his very soul.
Yeah. Lasse
is music.
Yeah. I agree.
Look, let's cut this off here. Normally when I do the thing, I ask my guests to do my two favors. That's the close of the show. But
this became the new chapter.
I do want to thank you for coming on. And like I say, when I have people come on, there's a very specific reason. So I want to thank you for filling in the gaps in your background, a few things about you that I didn't know. And let's look at this as the first step of our friendship as we go on.
Sure.
I call you friend and I call you brother.
Okay, good. And I do the same to you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. Much respect for the work you do. And I'm looking forward to building up on our friendship. So thank you for doing this, man.
Thank you for having me.
One last time for everybody, whether you're listening on a podcast episode, whether you're listening on my radio program or watching on YouTube, look in the description of this episode. Find the links where you can support the work that I do. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.